Hey everybody, welcome to the Sunday Show After Dark. I am Forrest Valkai, and I'm joined today by the one and only Paulogia. Welcome, Paul. Thank you so much for being here with me today. How are you, my friend?
I am stunned and delighted at the same time. Well done.
Yeah.
Is this
thank
from
you.
your history of doing kids' birthday parties?
Yeah, well, you know what? I wanted to teach some science with some balloons, so I had some left over, and I figured we might as well have some fun with them. We got a great show for everybody tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've already got theists calling in, but we still have lines open for everybody else who wants to try. That number on the bottom of the screen remains the same as always, 720-619-2288. If you are a theist or a creationist or someone who believes in the Bible, if you have a god or gods or supernatural claims, ghosts, spirits, angels, fairies, demons, pixies, leprechauns, whatever it might be, that you would like to call in and defend and discuss, this is the show to do it. And also, if you're a science denier of any kind, if you don't believe in evolution, if you don't believe in the age of the earth, if you don't believe in the Big Bang, if you don't believe in LGBT people or that trans people are who they say they're, right, or whatever other thing, transphobes, flat earthers, creationists, science deniers of all stripes, this is your show. Call in and talk to us a little bit, because we've got a great program for you tonight. You've got two of the hosts, two of the most patient and polite and calm hosts on this network here, ready to take your calls, ready to discuss some stuff with you, ready to hear what you believe and why. So if you have a belief and you'd like to defend it, that number at the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288, or use the link in the description to call in over the webs, over them internets. This is the place to do it. Paul, how are you? How's your day going?
I'm good. We failed to predetermine who was going to be bad cop, so we may have to just bounce
we'll
that back
both
and
be
forth
bad
a bit.
cop.
I'm good. I'm getting ready next month for an episode with this young upstart named Forrest Valkai that I'm excited to.
Oh God, I'm so sorry. Nobody go watch that. We just recorded recently, and it was a lot of fun. I hope to do more stuff with you in the future. Cool. We've got like I said, already calls pouring in. But
let's do
really quick before we get started, we have the other things that are happening. Do we have a schedule for the rest of the week that we can see? Because I don't know. I know I can see here that tomorrow, I know this one for sure. Tomorrow, on Monday, I'm going to be hosting Skeptalk with Erika. So pack your snacks and snuggle on in for an 8-hour live stream where we're going to be talking about any old biology thing. I also know that the hang up is on Wednesday with Matt Dillahunty and Mr. Deity. I can see those are the published things. The rest of the schedule I didn't ask for before the show. So
it's uncertain because we have a holiday weekend. So
okay. I'll be hosting every single day for the entire holiday. We've already got calls lined in, so I'm gonna go and just jump right into it. Are you cool with that, or do you have any more? Okay, cool.
Let's get to it.
Let's start with Thomas, pronouns he, him, calling in from Tenacious Xenon. Noble gas with a lot of sass. Thomas is calling in saying that God exists. Let's talk about it. Thomas, you're on the line with Forrest and Paul. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are y'all doing today?
Never had a bad day.
So far, so good.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So I'm a little unfamiliar somewhat with the format still. Do I just begin to speak, or do you guys have a starting place to go off of?
What do you believe, and why should we believe it?
Okay. So to sort of preface my beliefs, I would not consider myself a science denier, as some of the people that you spoke about beforehand. I do believe in evolution, Big Bang, in all of those different scientific ideas, because I am more of a classical theist when it comes to my understanding of the idea of God. I am a Christian, but primarily I believe in God due to metaphysical concerns and philosophical ideas, rather than sort of fallacious creationist arguments that I've encountered, because I used to be an atheist at one point, and looking more into specifically more scholastic and metaphysical ideas of God seemed to give me a lot more of an idea of something that was more reasonable to believe in, if that makes sense.
So why should we join you on this trip from atheism to theism?
So the biggest thing that sort of convinced me about God's existence was first off redefining the idea of God, not in the idea of creating a completely new idea of God, but rather conceptualizing him as more classical philosophers would have, such as Aristotle, certain Platonic worldviews, as a classically theistic God who is without parts and who is uncontingent. Something which is the absolute reality, divine simplicity. A lot of those ideas would carry out. The biggest thing that I personally would say for a belief in God in general, there's more specific ideas of a Christian God, which I won't get into at first. But the biggest idea for me is the idea of what grounds mathematical and scientific explanations, because I'm not convinced in a materialistic idea of metaphysical values, or not values of systems. Really, because I see Aristotelian metaphysical categories as making a lot more sense intuitively, but also just making a lot more sense when we see the grounding of different scientific laws. For instance, I believe that a lot of science and a lot of materialistic metaphysical presuppositions are built on very axiomatic understandings of trusting one's senses and observances. But I don't think we can truly have that grounding unless we have something that would be outside of those laws, and that would be what I would call God. So I'm arguing more for a Thomistic or like Aquinas's God than I am necessarily arguing for creationist Dave's God, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Thomas, help me out here. So you listed math and science. Now, as far as I understand both of those disciplines, both of those things are descriptive disciplines, right? They describe observations, they describe what we see, and they attempt to make future predictions, and we test them against, we test these predictions against new observations. To me, they're both descriptive in the same way, a language is descriptive and all this kind of, so I'm confused as to what my understanding needs grounding in beyond mere reality that it's describing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to try to interrupt you there.
No, I was done. You're good.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I think to me it's the idea of observances and how can we trust that our observances are based in reality.
Okay, but
for instance, oops, sorry.
But why does that matter if our observances are reliable or not in terms of grounding?
Well, because fundamentally we ground science in a way to where, you're both familiar with the scientific method. The entire point is that we are observing things and that we are taking our observations to be accurate or at least trustable in a way.
I think I just told you what it is. It's the point of science is to make predictions and to see if those predictions come true.
So how are we observing if? Sorry,
I'm sorry. I want to. No, I wanted a couple of. Well, no, it's fine. I don't even want to get into science too much. I just want to get into I think I'm misunderstanding something, and I want to just clarify. You said that you believe in a God because you need something. And I'm summarizing what you're saying here. So tell me if I'm mischaracterizing it. You said need, there must be something that is uncontingent and without parts when you're talking about the universe and everything. It sounds an awful lot like this is just a very, very circuitous roundabout way to get back to the Kalam cosmological argument of every effect must have a cause, therefore there must be some cause without a cause, and that's God. Or everything in the universe obeys the laws of physics, therefore there must be something outside of the universe, outside of physics, space, time, whatever, to create it, to cause, and that's God. Or any of the other variations of this. It sounds, when you talk about something that's unchanged and uncontingent and without parts and all these things that you're throwing in here, that's where it sounds like this is going. And I want to make sure, is that the main point of it? Is that where you're trying to get to?
It could be. I don't think I would necessarily articulate it in the same way as the Kalam argument. I think I would probably articulate it more through the Thomistic, the lens of contingencies and hierarchical causes. But I think it makes a lot. Here, sorry. Can I clarify one thing? What I mean by
please.
our observations must our observations being required to be grounded.
Please do.
Okay, yeah. So I think whenever you guys were speaking about the idea of science just being a way that we predict and that we observe that these things came true, how do we know that what we are observing is actually the case? And how do we trust our senses in the way to where we actually know what we are observing is the matter of fact? And that's really what I'm getting at with that statement.
So two things here. Number one,
okay.
I am going to answer that question, but I need to ask one more clarifying question. Did you say that you believe in the Christian gods? I'm not sure if I heard you say that or not.
I do believe in the Christian God, but fundamentally, whenever I argue for God as an existent being, I would start with the argumentation of that and then go on to specifically Christian God at another point, if that makes sense. I think they're separate questions.
Fine.
If they're God.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I didn't mishear you and I wasn't going to go down some trail about Christianity and you'd be like, why do you care about Christianity? I mean, okay, so what I'm hearing here, so the first thing that you learn when you start picking up science, or at least for me, in my very early undergrad, we covered this concept called naive realism. And naive realism is the fallacious belief that your senses are enough to tell you about the reality that you live in. And that is the whole project of science, is taking things, we could look around and just gather just basic sensory data and get a lot of wrong conclusions about reality. And so when we look out, say, for example, doing spectroscopy, looking out in the universe and figuring out what galaxies are made of and what stars are made of and what different nebulae are made of and like what's going on out in the universe, that is taking data that we don't fundamentally have access to and translating it into something that we do have access to, right? When we look at even something simpler, if we look at like an infrared camera, you cannot see in infrared, but you can use a special camera, to translate those wavelengths into the visible spectrum so you can see them. And so you talk about this as if, you're saying like, how do we know the basis of the blah, blah, blah. That's a lot of the point of science, is getting out of your own way and finding what you didn't even know and building knowledge that isn't there because you're able to assemble the data that you have and build up into a new idea. That's the whole point of inductive reasoning, is that you're not just saying, well, here's the 5 options that I've decided on, we'll see which one works. You're inducing something. You're saying, here's what I've got. What does this point to? Even if it's something I've never heard of or thought of before. And so, like, when I was just going to finish by saying, like, so when you talk about this stuff, like, the biggest thing that I think, what it sounds like you're missing, and correct me if I'm wrong, what it sounds like you're missing is that we don't know for sure if what we're looking at is the fundamental truth of reality or whatever, but it's the closest damn thing that we have, backed by the best evidence that we have. And when we find better evidence, we change our minds. And it's a hell of a lot better to do that than to assume that there's some sort of supernatural thing that we don't have any real evidence for, just out of some necessity to make it easier for your brain,
Okay, yeah. So I understand where you're going with that. I would also like to clarify. I would apply distrust of one's senses also to observing data collected by these different ways that we collect inaccessible data to our naked eyes. But I would also say that I think that just here, I'm sorry, let me take my time to phrase this.
Sure.
I really do believe that in order to trust our senses at all, even in observing those things which are becoming more accessible to us, it is necessary to ground the idea that our senses are reliable in some way. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, but that's kind of the thing, is that our senses are, at the end of the day, all we have. And so, to Paul's point, what Paul was saying is that a major function of science is to make testable predictions. And so, if I were to turn this around and say, okay, now this is something that makes sense to my eyes, my ears, my whatever, that's not good enough. I now need to say, okay, this is the model that I have, and I'm going to apply that to the world. And if this model is accurate, then I should see these things. And that's, the whole point of falsifiability, right? So like, say, for example, the Big Bang, like if the Big Bang happened, then we should see some sort of low level, like low wavelength radiation that's pretty ubiquitously smeared across the entire universe. And indeed, when we look for that, we find the cosmic microwave background radiation. So we don't just say, if I look at the data on the regression of galaxies in a way that makes sense to me, it kind of sounds like this, and there I'm going to roll with it. It's, all right, so this is something that makes sense. Now what? What does that mean? And can I double check that? Can I make testable predictions and have those stand up? And that's like the fact-checking phase of science. You know what I mean? Right. Paul, you look like you had something.
And a much more simple method, like if I continually see, if I'm in a room and I continually see doors, but if I attempt to walk through the door, I can't leave the room, then at some point I'm going to start doubting my eyes, right? Or if my eyes are good enough to identify the hole in the room so that I can leave the room, then I can now trust my eyes to that extent, right? Just to the extent that, I can identify a hole in the wall versus not a hole in the wall. So as Forrest was saying before, most of science is compensating for the fact that we can't reliably rely on our senses, that we are not great at that, but they're just kind of good enough, and we don't have any other way. So what is insufficient? What is insufficient about what Forrest and I described for grounding?
Before I speak to that, could I ask one clarifying question real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So would you guys take it just for, like, let me make sure I'm getting it right. You guys would just take it for granted then that we should just use our senses as they are and try to compensate for their inaccuracy?
Yeah, but also, like, what's the alternative? What are you using, if not your senses, to make determinations about what is real and what is not? That's kind of all you've got.
I would still say that we use our senses insofar as, obviously, we're using our senses right now to communicate with each other. But I'd also say that we would ground the idea that our senses can be somewhat reliable in this something that would be outside of testability and outside of change. And I would say that I need to ground that because I don't know if I can. I don't think I can bring myself to axiomatically understand my senses as trustable enough to see the world, especially when we are not even able to prove necessarily that everybody sees things in the same way or hears things in the same way. I just think our senses are so unreliable that
we can standardize those things in a way that seems to elicit the exact same results from everybody. And so, like, whether or not my red is exactly the same as your red, we're using the same kind of cone cells to go to the same kind of brain, and we both agree on what red is and means, and we have the same psychological effects elicited by the color red and all. So whether or not our perception is actually identical doesn't really matter in terms of, like, what the effects are. And again, that doesn't answer my question, which is your senses are, as far as I can tell, the only thing you have to make determinations, to understand anything about the universe that you live in. And yeah, you're going to have to account for where they are inaccurate as long as you know they are and try to make those corrections. That's what any reasonable person would be doing. So if you're not doing that, if you have some other modality to understand what the ultimate truth of the universe is beyond your senses, I would like to hear it.
Okay. I sort of understand what you're getting at now. I would say that the existence of a God that grounds these ideas of senses and grounds the idea that I can observe things would make it much easier for me. And I'm here. Let me rephrase that because that's going to sound like it's out of just simple convenience. But I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this. I'm sorry.
Maybe you can just give me an example.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be easier.
Okay.
Just what's an example of a way that you know, that you can test and know things about God that don't involve sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, proprioception, whatever else?
Well, I don't necessarily know that we can use material tests on a lot of philosophical ideas. So, I mean, one question to clarify: would you guys both consider yourselves relatively materialistic, as far as like metaphysical claims would go? Like naturalist?
As far as I understand the concept of like metaphysics, because I'm not a philosopher, so I guess, but as far as I understand what you're saying, I'm pretty sure, yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm a methodological naturalist, so.
There you go.
Okay, I'm not trying to use any terms like, corner you into something that you're not. But so I think that outside, so it's going to be hard, obviously, to try to give you an example. Then, if you would not want to recognize, if you wouldn't recognize the idea of things outside of the naturalistic world, but I think just the very idea that we have any metaphysics whatsoever, and the idea of looking at if we can trust one's senses and trying to find whether or not we can. And I think that's just a relatively immaterial idea to look at in the first place. I'm really phrasing this very badly, so.
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's what it sounds like you're saying. I'm sorry. I want to hear what Paul said, but
go for it.
What that sounds like, and I don't think this is what you're trying to say. So shore up my understanding. What it sounds like you're saying is the very fact that we can question our understanding of reality necessitates a supernatural explanation.
I don't know. That's not exactly what I'm getting at. I don't necessarily reject that in full. I don't know if I would articulate it in that manner. But that's not exactly what I'm getting at, if that makes sense.
So start with that then. Where build off of that. What does that get wrong, and how should that be rephrased to more closely align with what you're actually driving towards?
Okay, yeah.
Unless you have a completely better way to start. I'm not trying to put you in a box. I just think that's a good place to start based on what I've heard from you so far.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so keep in mind I'm still really researching into more philosophical ideas too. So sometimes my phrasing isn't the best off the top of my head.
It's all good. It's also a genuinely weird situation to call in and talk to two strangers on the internet. So like, take your time. We're going to get there.
Yeah. So I would point to materialism and its relationship with the senses as almost being to the point where if we do not have a supernatural force I guess supernatural force is the best way to put it, we must be cornered into such an extreme skepticism that no truth would exist at all. Because our senses would be so unreliable. Is that a bad thing? Yeah. I'd say that is I'd say that is a bad thing because we certainly act as if there's truth.
Right, but like that's just like when I go around in my day-to-day, it's entirely possible that I'm a brain in a vat being fed chemicals. It's very possible that I'm in an alien simulation. It's very possible that I'm in an insane asylum right now thinking that this is my life when it isn't. It's possible that I actually just woke up 5 minutes ago and came into existence and that all of my memories were pre-programmed into me. All of these things are possibilities, but I interact with reality around me as best as I can understand that it's reality. And when I say that I know things, I really am kind of just saying I believe it so hard that if I didn't believe it, it would be absurd. It would be ridiculous in my understanding of the universe for this thing to not to be true. And so, like, we go back to the point of science, like, we don't know anything in science. There's not a single thing that I would ever say definitively 110%, this is for sure. That's the whole point of theories, is that it's the best understanding that we have, a functional explanation of observed natural phenomena backed by the best evidence that we've got, but that is subject to change when new evidence comes around. So, like, not knowing something for sure is just being honest enough to say, I don't have access to literally every single bit of knowledge in the entire universe. I don't know everything about everything about everything. So as best as I can tell, this is a lime slushy and it tastes delicious. It could be boiled horse urine in a Viking flask that tastes horrible, and I'm actually just been kicked in the horse enough times that I think it's tight. Like, it could be, but I don't think that's the case. And I'm not claiming to be absolutely certain. It's just, it would be ridiculous for me to assume that I was wrong about that because of the evidence that I have. So being intellectually honest and saying, I could never possibly really fundamentally know stuff, isn't the same as walking through life saying, I don't know anything, nothing's real, I have no idea where I am or what I'm doing or what anything is, like, and being completely confused all the time. It's not necessary. It's just being honest and saying, I'm working with the best evidence I've got and I'm going to do the best I can. What's so bad about that?
I think that the thing that is so intuitively bad about that is the idea that you're living within a truth that you know is not true. I think that genuine truth matters a lot to me.
Thomas, I need you to.
That's not what I said.
I need you. Yeah.
Okay.
I need you to define truth.
I'm sorry if I mischaracterized.
No, the clear thing is, I didn't say I know it's not true. I said I will never be certain. And Paul, I think, is about to say something really important as well.
Yeah, okay. Just before he does, I wanted to apologize.
In order to proceed with this, I need to know what you think truth is in order to even proceed.
Truth. I mean, I'll just give the definition off the top of my head. The world as is. Let me think of a good way to phrase it.
Let me give you my definition of truth. And okay, sorry, I just didn't mean to cut you off.
The way things are in actuality.
Okay, so I define truth as the extent to which a proposition conforms to reality. Would you agree with that definition?
Yeah, I'm fine with that definition.
Okay, so the extent to which it conforms to reality tells us that truth is grounded sufficiently by reality.
Okay.
If God happens to be part of reality, cool. Awesome. If God's part of reality, neat. Then he's part of it. But we don't need God to define truth because truth is that which conforms to reality.
Well, I think my definition of God would also perceive him as the ultimate reality and the source of all reality as well. So I think that it would be necessary under my definition as well.
Okay, but that's why I asked you for a definition of reality, right? Because I'm not going to accept that.
Yeah, I think.
Definition of truth. Definition of truth. Yeah, and that's so.
Yeah.
And if God is true, cool. Then he's part of reality, and therefore he's part of truth. But he gets to supersede reality in terms of truth.
I would say that fundamentally, like any definitional, or at least the definitional framework of God that I would be discussing, would define him fundamentally as that which defines reality. So truth would be.
So you're defining a God that. So you're just defining a God into existence here.
No, not necessarily. I would say that this would be part of God's definition, and I would say that it explained that this God would be revealed to us via reason through other methods, such as the idea of metaphysical, necessity, the contingency, like we've already discussed, and the idea of
So we asked you long ago what was insufficient about our view that requires a God, and we've been going round and round. And it seems like I still have yet to hear, and maybe Forrest has, I've yet to hear any insufficient thing other than that you don't like how non-confident we can be in our senses, and Forrest and I are just kind of like, what other choice do we have? We can't be fully confident in our senses, so we just kind of shrug our shoulders and say meh. And if you want to back up and say, well, God's telling me my senses are reliable, I'm also think that's skeptical because I wear glasses, and I wore glasses when I believed in God. And when I believed in God, I didn't just go around driving without my glasses saying, well, you know what? God's going to tell me that my senses are good enough. God was telling me my senses weren't good enough. So I'm confused about your whole enterprise here.
Okay, I think I sort of understand what you're getting at there. I'd say that maybe more so than senses being reliable is the idea that I believe that there is an objective truth, right? That we are observing, and without a higher metaphysical category or necessity of being, we don't have any grounding for this truth existing. Because, like you guys would say, that you can't call anything absolutely true. I would just.
But I gave you a definition of truth, right? I gave you a definition of truth that you said was generally fine. That the extent to which a proposition conforms to reality. So how is ultimate truth better than that definition that I gave you? There must be some gap between the definition of truth I gave you and ultimate truth.
Well, I think the difference, right, again, between ultimate truth and the definition of truth that we're working with is the idea that we define reality probably somewhat differently, like we've already somewhat discussed.
Reality is everything that exists, which includes a God if he exists.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, once again, I'm sorry if I'm pausing.
No. We've all. I'm using a different vocabulary. Forrest is using a different vocabulary. You are. I think we're all trying to translate our terms so that each other can understand, and I get that takes time.
Yeah. Would you mind repeating your latest question? That I'm
sure.
I'm trying to find a grading.
My latest question was that we were using a working definition of truth that meant the extent to which a proposition conforms to reality, and I think we tentatively agreed that reality is everything that exists, including God if he exists. And then you brought in some idea of an ultimate truth that was better than my truth, that was better somehow. And I'm looking for the gap between what I gave and what you're calling ultimate.
Okay, so I do think I sort of understand where we're sort of diverging a little bit here. And I think I'm saying that the idea of ultimate truth is not necessarily different than that of the working definition of truth that we've already agreed upon, but more so that I would believe that truth and reality fundamentally are outflowings of this metaphysically necessary being called God, if that makes a little bit more sense.
And what makes him necessary other than just reality? So I at the start you talked about axioms. I think Forrest and I both hold that as an axiom that reality exists. I think we would have to agree that that's axiomatic. What is a problem with holding that axiomatically, and how does adding God to that make it non-axiomatic?
I think we'd have to start going back to the idea of maybe a separate argument or a separate discussion about whether or not of why God would be necessary. Is that what you're asking?
What is insufficient about grounding truth in reality?
Right. Okay. Because I'd say fundamentally, grounding truth in reality is grounding truth in God. So I'd have to then prove God in a different way than we're speaking of. So I think we'd have to touch on a different. Yeah.
I guess the biggest thing is, I think that's a good place to end it. Is I hope you call back and try that next, because so far all we've agreed on is that reality probably exists, and we think that it just does, and you think that there must be a supernatural explanation for that. And what it sounds like I'm hearing is like if we don't understand, like if I were to take Paul and my's position and straw man it into oblivion and just say that we don't know anything about anything, like we have no idea what anything is, we have no concept of reality, all we know is we're alive, cognito ergo sum, I know I'm alive, I know I'm thinking, that's it. That's all I've got. That, even if I were to go that far with it, that still would not justify saying, so then there's magic. And there's this guy that lives outside of space and time or whatever, and he can like make planets and people and stuff and doesn't want us eating shellfish or fucking each other in the butt. And like that's just a lot to add there. You know what I mean? And so like even just the guy, I don't know what reality is. So there must be some being that is also incomprehensible and so big and beyond anybody's explanation and like understanding. Like nobody can truly know God. God is so massive and mysterious and incredible. You said you're a Christian. The Bible says that you know he's beyond comprehension and everything. And so there's this thing that we don't understand called reality, and therefore there's an even bigger thing that we don't understand called God. And I don't understand why that's the leap you're willing to make. So I hope, we've been on the call for about 30 minutes. We got 5 other people waiting, and we got like maybe a 3-ish hour show. So Thomas, I'm going to move on to the next call, but I really sincerely do appreciate you calling in and talking to us. You were great. I hope you call back and talk to us again. I'm hosting again tomorrow. Yeah, it's fun. I'm hosting again tomorrow. I don't know when Paul's next show is, but call and talk to us some more, and I hope we get a little bit further next time.
Yeah, I just wanted to say it was a good conversation. Good to talk to y'all. Sorry if I accidentally misrepresented anyone's views.
I don't think you did.
All good.
I think it was a very productive conversation. We got through one part of it. We got to agreeing on what reality is, kind of. And that's a big step in the right direction.
Thanks,
Take
Thomas.
care,
Y'all have a great night.
Bye-bye, you too. What a great way to start the show.
Yeah.
Let's try somebody else. We've got, are you seeing the call screen?
I am. I'm assuming we want to go with assuming we want to go with theist, right? Oh,
yeah,
you?
well, they're all theists. I was looking at line number 5 or line number 6. I thought were most interesting.
Go for it. Sure.
Okay, let's do this one. Let's talk to Carlos. No pronouns given. Calling in from Flippin' Lemurs, who is a theist who says there is good reason to believe. Carlos, you're on the line with Forrest and Paul. How you doing?
Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you, Forrest.
Having a great day.
That's good. Because, you know, this is important. Because look at the world right now, right? It's not, right?
It's no more nuts than usual.
No. It's not normal. For example, having children wearing blue hair. That's not normal. It's not normal having people putting ink.
Blue hair?
I bet 10,000 years ago there were kids with blue hair. I bet there were.
Yeah,
so
blueberries and
hair
stuff.
dyes existed.
But exactly, because it's been done so from long ago. This is why we're not getting where we need to be. You see? So are you ready? Because I'm not just a regular guy. You know?
I'm curious, Carlos, how does blue hair get us from getting to where we need to be? Like, how is that such a on societal
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to explain to you. It's a sign of lack of mental illness. How do you recognize evil? You want me to tell you? Let me give you a few red flags. One. Let me give you a few red flags. One.
No, I'm asking. You said how something talks about evil.
A sign of evil.
What defines evil?
A sign of evil. A sign of evil.
What is evil?
Yeah.
Carlos, we're too simple to understand what evil is. You got to tell us.
I'm
curious to know
evil.
Who's defining
let me tell you what is evil.
Like you said,
let me tell you evil. Evil is an adult raping a baby. That's evil.
No. That's an example.
Only example?
That's what?
That's an example of evil. That's not the definition of evil.
That's not the definition of evil. What's the definition of evil?
Exactly,
is it what you
exactly evil? I'm going to explain to you. Evil. Do you know? I'm going to explain to you the concept of evil. You see? The concept of evil. You know what is evil meant to be in this design? Evil is only meant to punish the sinners when they sin. That's all.
So
let me give you a characteristic of evil.
And you've given us
let me give you. You ask me, and let me explain to you. You ask me, and let me explain to you. You know, you ask me, let me explain to you. Evil. So let me give you a characteristic of evil. Evil is narcissistic. Evil doesn't want progress. Evil wants everyone sick. You see, it's
Carlos,
a power.
The problem,
it's a dark power.
Carlos,
Let me
the
explain
issue
to
that we're
you.
having here. I'm going to mute you if you don't quit interrupting me. Carlos, the problem that we're having here is you said that you're going to explain evil. We asked you to define what evil is. You gave us an example of evil. You told us what you think evil is for. You described evil.
Okay,
you have yet to tell us what evil actually is. And you keep saying, let me tell you. I'm going to explain it to you. Let me tell you. Let me tell you. And you keep not telling us. So I don't know what you're talking about yet. And I still have no idea what this has to do with blue hair.
Because you still don't let me talk. You keep interrupting.
You've been doing nothing but talking for this whole time.
No, you keep interrupting, and that's why. You see, that's evil, blocking the progress. So let me explain to you. Evil is let me explain to you. Evil is let me say about the design. The design that is God, and God created everything.
I want you to tell me the definition of evil.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. So God, he designed evil. It's only to punish.
God made everything.
People.
That doesn't clarify anything.
But let me tell you. You see another one blocking. You see, so evil.
You've yet to
is
say
the one that is.
You saying God used
let
evil
me
to punish
finish.
people. I know you said that.
Evil
before.
is designed to punish the people that cross the line or break the rules. You see what I mean? For example, let me give you an example.
That
Bryant,
doesn't help,
right?
Carlos, if I say that a noose is designed for hanging executions, that doesn't tell you what a noose is. It tells you what it does. I'm asking you, what is evil? What is the definition of the word?
Is a force in the design. Do you understand? It's a force that punish the sinners. Let me give you the example.
So
let me give you an example. For example,
like gravity is a force? Like, how is it a force?
No,
what does that mean?
Like a dark force. You see? Like a dark force. For example, like a force.
What does dark mean? Does it have a color?
It's no. It's something that you don't see.
What do you
For
mean
example,
by dark?
Do you see hate? Tell me, is the same as hate? Do you see hate?
No, it's an emotion.
No, right?
So is evil an emotion?
Exactly. It's something invisible. It's the same thing. It's dark. It's what, for example,
how is it
somebody.
A force?
Let me give you an example. If somebody take the decision to hurt themselves, hurting their skin, putting ink on their skin.
How is that a force?
Because it's after trauma. It's because after you sin. You understand?
No, we don't understand.
I don't understand that. So what you said it's a force, and you said that examples of the force are raping children, dyeing your hair blue, and getting tattoos. So what is the way in which evil is forcing you to get tattoos, dye your hair, and rape children? How does that work? What is the force doing there?
Okay, let me give you an example. You see? For example,
I still want a definition.
No, but let me show you. Let me try to explain to you. For example, let me give you an example. Next week is going to be Thanksgiving, right? Right?
I'm Canadian, so no, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
For some Americans that celebrate.
Tell me something. Do you think that God designed the birds, the beautiful birds, for us?
I don't think God designed anything.
Let me finish. Real,
for us to eat, to end up in KFC, or to end up in a cage? Tell me.
The answer remains no, because I don't think God did anything. I don't think God is real.
No, but just play. Wait. Have you seen the toucan? Have you seen a toucan?
Yes, I've seen toucans. Yes.
Okay, guacamaya, condor. You're a biologist. Yeah. Remember I told you you're gonna be the best biologist once you find out the word of God.
They evil?
That's why. Okay, so let me give you.
Are you the dude from my Instagram that said that you were gonna make me a better biologist? I have questions for you. Hold on, I have questions for you too because you said some things. You said some things on my Instagram, and I want to know about them. We'll get there. Okay, cool.
But please, wait.
Yeah, we'll go through your thing first.
But wait, no, let me finish this part about the birds. So you are a biologist, right? So think about this.
Yes.
The guacamaya, a toucan, a chicken, a blue jay, a cardinal, a turkey, a peacock, a hummingbird, right? All these beautiful birds, right? Yeah, birds were designed on this design to be free and fly, right? So let me tell you one of the reasons why people put blue hair in let me tell you why the reason people have blue
Carlos,
hair.
You just said something that isn't true. Why should we move on
let me finish. Wait. Let me finish.
Why?
So next week, we're going to be a bunch of eating a lot of people. We're going to sacrifice 45 million turkeys because that's how we want to say thanks. You see? And birds are sacred. So as long as you have birds in your system, you are against the God. So you are breaking the rules. For example,
Carlos, I need you to understand. Carlos, hold on a second. What you've just done is you listed a bunch of birds. You said that birds are designed by God to fly and things, which Paul and I don't agree with. We don't think that's true. And then you actually, like, the thing I need you to understand is if I were to make a joke about creationist or theistic arguments, I would say something ridiculous like, if you have birds in your system, you're going against God. And that's what you actually just said. So, like, I'm failing to believe that you're serious here. And if you are serious, you're not getting to a point. You're just rambling. It's wasting a lot of time.
This is just part of it.
Do you think, Carlos, that people should be eating tofu for Thanksgiving?
Brother?
Would it be?
You don't even know who I am.
I don't care who you are, dude. You're just a caller. I'm asking you, does it matter if
wait
they eat something
because again,
other
this
than
is not
turkey?
going to be a regular taste that doesn't know nobody, like for example, Christians,
Carlos,
like the Bible.
I'm going to go ahead and mute you for a second. You are now muted because you're just steamrolling this call, and I hate doing that, dude. I really do. But this isn't your show, and I'm not going to let you just dominate and dictate what this call is. You've made a lot of claims here. And we need to have a discussion, not just have you talk to us, right? We're not having you ramble to us. So I'm going to unmute you for a second. I'm asking you, what does eating turkey have to do with evil and blue hair and tattoos and all this other stuff? I don't understand where you're going with this. So please get to the point very quickly. What is the point that you're trying to make?
All right. I'm going to show you because, I'm going to fight hard for you, Forrest, because I want to heal you because you are dark. You are a great guy. You are so bright. You are so intelligent.
The whitest person anyone has ever met.
You want to know why?
Are you kidding
because
me?
Of your parents.
You can see my bones, Carlos. You can, I glow in the sunshine like fucking Edward Cullen. I am the whitest man on the face of the earth. It's
I'm not talking about color.
How white I am.
I'm not talking about
color.
You
said I'm dark. I don't know what you mean because you said dark a minute ago and then you said that didn't mean color and I don't know what you...
I'm talking about dark evilish. That's what I'm talking about. I know dark that you're evilish. Very white. Evilish. Like, for example, Chris Brown, Kanye West, Donald Trump. Those are dark people. You are on the same side.
I mean, yeah, fuck all those guys. But that's offensive to call me the same as Chris Brown and Donald Trump and Kanye West. I'm neither a rapist nor a Nazi. But here we are, I guess.
For example, tell me, do you think, for example, it's okay for tattoos? It's okay tattoos? Do you know how unhealthy tattoos are? No, but do you know how unhealthy they are? Do you know what they mean?
Carlos, you won't even let me answer. I think that it's totally acceptable for somebody, for an adult to do whatever they want to with their body as long as it isn't hurting anybody else. That includes tattoos, dyeing your hair, whatever else, including smoking and drinking and taking drugs. It's their right as an adult to get to do that if they want to, even if even it would hurt them, because they should know the risks and be choosing what to do with their own body. It's fundamentally unsafe for me to drive a car, but I do it every day.
All right, but this is a good opportunity for me to explain to you, for example, the reason of that. You see what I mean? For example, the reason of drinking, or people doing drugs, or people putting tattoos, piercings, a modification in the skin. Let me explain to you. Plastic surgery. You see what I mean? All that. Those are consequences of trauma. So, for example, when you see a tattoo, you already know.
That's not true.
Let me finish. So, when you see somebody with a tattoo, you already immediately, that's an indicator. You already know that person already went through trauma. Something happened when they were young. So, since you have a trauma, that's
Carlos,
when you start the mental illness.
Carlos, there are plenty of cultures around the world where tattooing is actually just a rite of passage to become an adult or something to celebrate major.
But let me tell you why.
I'm gonna mute you again because you can't stop interrupting us, Carlos. You've got to have a conversation with us, not just yell whatever you think. There are plenty of cultures around the world where tattooing is a rite of passage to become an adult or a celebration of major life events, good things when you are very happy. You go out and get a tattoo to celebrate it. There are also plenty of people that just have different standards of what they think is beautiful or fun or something that's worth having on their body. It is not an indicator of trauma, and you have no actual psychological research to back that up. If you have an actual backing for that, I'd love to hear it, but I don't think that you do. I think you're just saying things that match your particular worldview, not actually anything that you have any evidence for. I'm going to bring you back, Carlos.
Yeah, now let me explain to you what tattoos means. I was telling you that they're indicators. That means trauma. That means you're saying that, they've been doing it for all over the world and a long time ago. Yeah, because you know how children, you drop a baby, and they get trauma. They get hurt, they get raped, all those traumas.
Carlos,
so from there, they're going to start having
fundamentally ridiculous. It is fundamentally ridiculous for you to sit here and say all these cultures. I'm going to mute you again. I'm not going to let you just sit here and spout nonsense. It is absolutely fundamentally ridiculous to say all these cultures around the world, all these babies were all dropped and raped, and that's the only reason they're getting tattoos. That's stupid and offensive. So, no, that's not the case at all. I'm going to give you like a couple more chances to have an actual dialogue with us. I have a couple questions I want to ask you as well. But I'm not just going to sit here and let you just talk shit on everybody who makes different life choices than you, man. You don't like tattoos, then don't get one. But freedom means that you get to do it if you want to, and it doesn't mean anything. It just means you wanted a damn tattoo. That's it. You're back on again, Carlos.
All right, thank you. Let me explain to you that God equals truth. So what I'm telling you, for example, I'm going to tell you the indicators.
No, it doesn't.
Dyeing your hair with colors, tattoos, piercings, wearing leather.
Wearing leather?
Yes, riding a horse.
You said a minute ago drinking as well. Is drinking also a sign of trauma?
No. Wait. No. I said drinking like a drunk. Like an alcoholic, that's bad.
Oh, so there's some
you can have a couple of drinks. Yeah, of course. It's a matter of control. Remember, let me tell you something about this.
What about a little piercing, a little tattoo? Is that okay?
Yeah.
What if I just dye a little bit of my hair?
No, but let me tell you. But let me tell you what it means. It's because I have to tell you what it means, so you can understand.
That's not on the script.
Let me tell you. If you understand what it means, you understand why. You see, you let me the opportunity.
Tattoo right here. I know a bunch of people that have crosses.
But let me tell you.
What if it's a Christian tattoo?
Can you ask me why you can't do that? And I tell you why. Do you know? I want to tell you the reason.
No, so that's not actually any of our questions. We're not asking why. That's not
okay. But because this is important. Because this is important.
No. This is a sermon now, Carlos. It's a sermon now. We've asked several things. I want to now know what you think truth is, because we disagree fundamentally on truth. You never told us what evil is. You never gave us a definition of evil.
I did. I pretty much did. You know.
No, you didn't.
Yes, everybody evil. Raping, killing is evil. Raping is evil.
These are examples. Yeah, they're not.
I told you.
What is food? And I said potatoes.
Evil is the one designed. Evil is the one designed in charge to maybe the punisher. You see? So if you cross the line,
I don't.
Yeah, if you cross the line,
Jack Castle, the Punisher, is that what it is?
Yeah, for example, Kobe Bryant, he cheated, right? You know?
No.
So that's what happens. God gave him amazing talents, amazing wife, and beautiful family. And guess what he did? He's going to have Pipi Loco? I'm sorry. You can't do that. Lust
Carlos,
is a sin.
It's
if
going
you don't
nowhere
respect your
fast.
family.
And like, Carlos, again, I'm not going to let you just fucking preach to us, dude. You just used the word sin. The definition of sin, as far as I can tell, is going against the will of God, doing things that God doesn't want you to do. I don't believe God exists. Therefore, I don't believe sin exists. You keep just saying things that are your preference, your worldview, your philosophies, your ideas, and you're not actually defending them or backing them up or saying anything meaningful. You're just giving us a sermon about what you think is important. And I still have questions about the crazy shit you left on my Instagram. Like, I still want to know what some of this stuff means. And we can't even get through the basics because you won't actually answer a question. You just want to preach. I don't understand why you're here, Carlos. It sounds like the whole goal for you calling in today is just to yell at us about what you think.
Oh, you guys are so funny. Oh my God. Remember, this is hard because I'm designed to be here to lead the way, but I cannot do it alone. So, whenever you want to meet my Instagram, I'll give it to you and you will know more about me because I have the information. I have the rules.
Carlos,
I have the rules.
I don't want to know about you. I don't care or know who you are.
No, but I'm just telling you
this,
because...
Carlos. Did God send you to talk to us? Are you a representative of God? Did he actually tell you to call into the show or anything like that?
No, I'm no. My mission here...
Does it bother you at all? Does it bother you at all that you have not only not convinced Paul or I, but people in the chat are thoroughly disgusted by everything you've been saying? They are not going to sell.
That's why
you are turning
here.
People further away from God. Your call is making so many more people not want anything to do with your God because this is how you're representing your religion. Does that bother you at all? Or is it just your ego that's important?
No. You see, that's why you sent me here because you have a push button so you can control the game. I still came here because nobody's going to stop me because the truth defends itself.
I'm not trying to stop you. You're not defending the truth. You haven't even told us what it is. And no one's trying to stop you. We're trying to make sure you don't just preach to everybody. We're not here for your sermon, dude.
Let me tell you one of the rules. Birds are sacred. That means no chicken, no egg, no turkey on Thanksgiving.
Whose rules are these? Whose rules are these?
I'm the one sending the message. Don't kill the messenger.
So it's your rules. So it's your rules.
No,
you just made some shit up and it's your rules.
No, because the rules work.
Which God?
What do you mean God? How many? Tell me. How many planets do you see with life?
Which God, Carlos?
Tell me how many planets there is with life that you know of.
Which God are
you
talking about?
Only one. Okay, so there's only one God. No. You keep believing there's a lot of gods. No, that doesn't even make sense. There's only
Carlos,
one.
What did you mean
God.
when you said on my Instagram, "We will meet and you will learn to be humble"? What did you mean by that? Because that sounds pretty threatening to me.
No. You see, that sounds fear. No, brother, I'm with God. I will never hurt you, brother. You will be humble.
People who claim to be with God hurt people all the time. Let me tell you.
Yes, but you see, guess who is that people? The Christians, right? There you go. Do you think that's God? Do you think that's God?
I don't know if you're Christian or not. You haven't told me what God you believe.
Exactly, because that is the wrong religion. There's only one God.
What's the right one? Which God?
Let me explain to you. There's only one God, one design. That's it. You don't know the rules. Wait until you find out the rules, because at least I hope
How can I follow them if I don't know them?
I don't exactly. That's so silly. Paul, do you have an interest in continuing?
You had another question from your Instagram, didn't you?
I had a bunch, but I don't think it's going to matter. It's not going to do anything because, like, at the end of the day,
come on.
Let's keep talking
because this is important. Because this is for you.
It's not
this is kind of like
that.
All.
Carlos,
you know why I'm here for? Do you know why I'm here for?
I don't know what your God is.
I'm trying to save your life, but you still don't know it yet. You see? You still don't know it yet.
I don't care. I don't want it. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It's pointless to me. You've yet to make it matter. You've yet to tell me why it matters. If I sit here and try to teach you about some crazy shit about like epigenetics or about like evolutionary developmental biology or some weird, deep, insane topic, you would have no reason to listen to me. You'd have to have me tell you why it matters first. And all you keep saying is it's important. It's the rules. I don't give a shit. Who has any rights to give me rules? I don't believe in your God, whatever God it is, I don't care.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something else about the design. Arrogant.
No, Carlos, I don't think that I'm gonna let you talk anything about my design.
No, I think we're good.
Design or whatever. I think it's over. It's really boring. And I tell you what, Carlos, I don't really do Thanksgiving too much, but I'm gonna go find a turkey and eat the whole fucking thing, and I'm gonna think of you the whole time, and just that's all for you. I'm gonna eat that entire turkey. I'm gonna swallow the bitch whole. I'm gonna eat that turkey live and kicking. I'm gonna swallow that entire bird, that huge, chunky 12-pound biscuit. It's going straight in me. I'm gonna snort it. Just for you. Carlos, this has been a deeply pointless call. I hope that you take the time to watch this back and listen to all the questions that Paul and I asked you and how many of them you just didn't answer, which is all of them. If your God is real, you are a shitty representation of it. And I want nothing to do with your God if you're the kind of person that comes here to talk about it. You have poorly represented your God. You have made me not like your God. You have turned us away from your God. I don't want your rules. I don't want your God because of your behavior. So if your God is real, I don't think he likes you because you're doing a terrible job.
The best thing Carlos did was not identify as God. So his God actually isn't embarrassed now. His God can't be embarrassed. He's like, no, that wasn't me.
I can't wait to put on a leather jacket, dye my hair blue, get a tattoo, and unhinge my jaw like a snake to eat a turkey, Carlos. Have a awesome rest of your day. Bye-bye.
I will never recover from chickens are sacred, but horses are sinful.
There's a lot.
I'll never recover.
There's a lot. Everybody eat a horse for Thanksgiving. That's what God wants you to do. Don't worry about which God. You'll never know. We've got a ton more calls. We've still got 5 more calls on the line, and they're all fucking theists. This is a wonderful day.
Great.
Let's talk to this one sounds fun. Let's talk to Gohan, also no pronouns given. Calling in from tiny xylophones. Little tiny things with a lot of clinkly noises. You can play several of them at the same time. Is a theist who says that the bodily autonomy argument against abortion doesn't work. I'm interested if this ties into theism at all, but it sounds like fun. Gohan, you're on the line with Forrest and Paul. How you doing? Gohan, if you're on the web caller, we can't hear you. You need to tap your phone and make sure it's awake. If your phone's gone to sleep, we won't be able to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hey, there you go. I can hear you now. Yes.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Never had a bad day, man.
Good. So, I was calling to talk about abortion and bodily autonomy argument.
Sure. Is this rooted in a theist thing? Like, are you calling to say this doesn't work because God, or is it a different thing entirely? I'm just curious.
Yeah, good question. No, this is not because of religion. So I usually say if I became an atheist today, I'd be pro-life tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Just I was curious as to what angle we were going to come from. Okay, so why does it not work to say that the bodily autonomy of someone with a uterus supersedes this need for them to carry a pregnancy that they don't want?
And sorry, just before we get into it, I did talk to you about 2 years ago on another show, and
cool.
I'm just wondering, we were talking about Dragon Ball Z a little bit. I asked if you would ever go see that a movie for it. Did you ever get to go see that movie? It was about 2 years ago. I'm guessing not.
I don't remember. I do. The one thing I remember, somebody told me the one time I looked something up about Dragon Ball Z, somebody told me to watch the end when Goku voips some guy, I think Cell, to another planet and destroys that planet or something like that happened. Somebody made a joke about like something and it tied into that, and then somebody told me to look it up and I looked that up. That's the only time I've ever looked into Dragon Ball Z thing from a call. So I'm sorry, I don't remember
fair enough.
what that is.
Fair enough. Okay, so other than that, I'll hop into it.
Sure.
Please.
I think after the last call, I kind of forgot a little bit of what I was going to say, but I'm pretty much going to go.
That happened to all of us. We all lost some brain cells during the last call. Carry on.
That was rough. It was real rough.
Right. I'm not trying to be rude to the other guy. It was very long, but
it was long and weird. Just
carry
like
on,
my usual
long and weird.
My usual stance is when it comes to bodily autonomy, that gives you a right for self-defense, even using lethal force in self-defense. But you're only allowed to use lethal force in self-defense if there is a high enough risk level of severe harm that can come to you. And if that hasn't been met, then you're not allowed to use lethal force. And abortion is a form of lethal force. So unless there's enough high risk of severe harm, you can't do an abortion.
Okay. I have two major issues with that. Paul, do you want to start or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay. Hold on, let me just take a note here. And okay, so a couple of things. Number one, you're talking about lethal force and an abortion, and you're conflating these terms, and you're saying that lethal force, that abortion is a lethal thing. And I get where you're coming from. You're saying that you're killing this embryo or this whatever. The issue is that the all abortion is terminating a pregnancy. And so whether it's a miscarriage is medically called a spontaneous abortion. So like anytime you terminate a pregnancy, anytime a pregnancy stops, that is abortion. That often does result in that embryo, fetus, child, whatever you want to call it, dying. But that's not like the point. It's not like you're going in there like deliberately killing a kid. You are just ending pregnancy for yourself. And I think that the distinction between those terms is really important. And the reason why is you can extend that to people that are alive right now, like people that aren't, in the womb, that we can talk about, people we know exist. If Paul had my same blood type, and I was in kidney failure and I was going to die and I needed blood, and I stuck a needle with a tube into his arm and started filtering his blood into me, he has the right to remove that tube. It wouldn't kill him to leave the tube in. There's no lethal force being applied to him. It is self-defense, but he's not like being at risk of death from me taking some of his blood for myself. But he still has the right to remove that tube from his arm, even though that will result in my death. He is not killing me. He is choosing for himself what his body is doing and who his body is sustaining. And that, in essence, is what I see with pregnancy, is that if you have an abortion, you're not killing a fetus, you are terminating a pregnancy. You are deciding what happens to your body and who your body is sustaining, and you have the right to do that, whether it's an embryo or a baby or a full-grown adult. Does that make sense?
Do you mind if I respond to that really quick?
I hope you do. That's I'm just clearing up because I think that's my answer to what you just said. So please give your answer to what I just said. Yes.
Sounds fair. So it sounds like you were saying if you attack Paul or something like that, and then if you require his blood and you stick him for a blood transfer, he has the right for self-defense to remove that blood transfer and let you die. That's pretty much what you were saying?
That's
okay.
The long and short of it.
Far,
he would not be killing me. He would be protecting himself and exercising his bodily autonomy. Even if it resulted in my death, he's allowed to do that.
Now, let's say you, when you attacked him, far-fetched, like you had a heart attack or something, and that's why you needed the blood. So if he refuses to give you the blood, what are you dying from?
In the specific example that I gave, it would be renal failure, and it would be blood toxicity. Okay. But it doesn't really matter. You can take it to be whatever you want.
So you're not dying from him not giving you the blood. You're dying from renal failure, correct?
In the same way that if we were to terminate a pregnancy, that embryo isn't dying from being stabbed or they are dying because they're no longer connected to a uterus.
Yeah, they're always killed before they're disconnected. They're the mifepristone. There's 2 drugs. The first one they use kills the organism. The second one is used to flush out the organism. So they are always killed, even if it's a D&E. I mean, they're chopped up before they're taken out then. But if it's from a medical drug, then they are killed first with medicine to stop growth and sometimes cause a heart attack, but it usually stops growth, and that's the definition of killing.
Sure. So
they
then
are killed before.
Let's go further with it then. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you up, but I want to get to the point here. Let's take that example and say I'm connected to Paul in such a way by some magical, I don't know, whatever, some device that necessitates my heart stop beating before it can be disconnected. So Paul, by removing the tube from his arm, is actually killing me. Again, I don't think that's actually, I don't know for sure how this works. I don't think what you're saying is accurate. I'm not a medical doctor. None of that is the point. Just rolling with what you're saying. If it was necessary that Paul end my life in order to protect his own bodily autonomy, I would still say he's right to do that. Do you agree?
Yes. This is very similar to the violinist argument. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
No, but did you just say that you did agree with me?
Correct.
Okay, so then what's the difference between Paul killing me by disconnecting me from his body and someone with a uterus killing this fetus by disconnecting it from their body?
I mean, I would try to answer this with if Mr. Paul agrees that the violinist argument is a good analogy, can I answer it with that?
I don't know what it is. Would you mind
pretend you don't? Forrest gave an example that is close enough to the violinist argument that you can just use Forrest's example. Whatever you can just translate whatever answer you're going to give to the one Forrest gave. You agreed that it was very similar, so let's not assume the audience knows or waste time repeating it.
Okay, that's fair. So I would say if there was a certain circumstance that put you in a situation where you need to be connected and the removal of that connection would kill you, I would say that's still you dying of whatever previous position you were in before that.
No, so the thing is rigged up in such a way that literally the removal of the device itself is what kills me. It's wrapped around my heart and penis. I don't know.
This is what I want to get into for the second option. If it is like not something that it just kind of like came naturally like that. Sorry, I dropped my phone. Yeah, so if the removal of it will kind of like kill your heart or tear out your heart or rip out other organs, sure, I would still say that he does not have the responsibility to keep you attached to him the same way that...
Right.
Yeah.
We agree. So someone with a uterus does not have the responsibility to keep an embryo attached to them, even if the removal is directly killing that embryo. They have the right over to their body, and they get to decide who their body sustains. And if killing that embryo is indeed the only way to remove it, then so be it. They're protecting themselves. Pregnancy is not a benign condition. It very easily can be life-threatening. No matter what, it is life-altering. And they have every right in the world to decide what to do with their body. And if you disagree with that and say that, no, actually, this fetus has the right to be there that supersedes this person's right to decide what happens inside their uterus, then you would be claiming that this fetus has special extra bonus rights that you don't have when you're alive. Furthermore, you have to sign up to be an organ donor. You have to agree. Hold on, I'm finishing my sentence. You have to agree to donate your organs. If I die and Paul needs my heart and I'm not signed up as an organ donor, we're both dying. So in the end, all we're doing here is we're applying the exact same rights to a fetus, embryo, baby, whatever you want to call it, while it's in the womb, as we would to literally anybody else, rather than saying that fetuses and corpses have more rights than anybody with a uterus.
Can I get a quick response really quick?
Please.
Please do.
So I definitely hear that side of the argument. I think I might lose you with this counterpoint, but it comes down to the relationship between you and Mr. Paul versus a parent and child. Biologically, that is the parent's child until someone else can take over. They have the responsibility of providing a
switch the exact same argument that I have just given you, except swap out Paul for my own mother. My mother, I am a 32-year-old man. I go find my mom and I plug a needle into her arm that wraps around my heart and penis or whatever the fuck else. If she removes a needle, I will die instantaneously. Does she have the right to defend herself? Or is she obligated to continue letting me use her blood?
So that's where my high risk of severe harm. If there's no high risk of severe harm, then she's obligated to not kill you.
So no, she's
right
not.
Now, as a 32-year-old man, I can force my mother to give me her blood. You think that is the case?
Wait, sorry. So I'm combining two premises here. One, that this was
let me rephrase
something that just happened. You did not force any of this. And secondly, there's high risk of severe harm.
Let me rephrase it. It is or not even rephrase it, restate it to make sure we're talking about the same thing. I'm talking about the exact same scenario, word for word, that I just gave you with Paul, only swap the word Paul for my mom. So I go find my mom. I'm in kidney failure. I stick a needle in her arm that wraps around my heart and penis. I need her blood to survive. If she removes the needle from her arm, I will instantly die. She will be killing me. Does she have the right to remove the needle and to say, I don't care if you die, I have a right over my body? Or is she obligated now, as a whatever the fuck old, I think she's like 60 something, as a whatever how old a woman she is she obligated to sustain and nourish me, a 32-year-old man, right now?
I mean, so kind of going back really quick, I would say no, based off of dependency. Unless you put yourself in that situation, then yeah, she could disconnect herself automatically. If it was like a situation that arises,
it doesn't matter how I got there. It doesn't matter how I got there. I need blood. I need her blood specifically, and I'm taking her blood. Does she have the right to say that another adult human, even if it is her child, does not get to just have her blood, and she can decide what to do with her body?
I'm not too sure about adult human. I would say 5-year-old kid, no. Adult human, I would say, yeah, she probably can release. If you're a
when is the
kid,
point?
You are.
When exactly is the point where I, in my life, lost the right to use my mother's body and organs in ways that she did not want me to? At what point in my life? What birthday?
Yeah, that's when you come of age to kind of take care of yourself. In America, we say that's 18, but it's whenever you become of age to be able to.
So when I turned 18, I registered for the draft, and I lost the fundamental right to steal my mother's blood. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, so I have 2 kids right now, and they steal parts of my organs every single day that I don't want them to.
You have a choice. You could give them up for adoption.
Also,
so
that is
the
gross. That is also, Gohan, a gross oversimplification of what we're talking about. We are talking about actually physically living inside of your body and using your organs to sustain themselves.
Yeah, let's not get distracted by.
If one of your kids were to, if one of your kids needs a kidney right now or a liver transplant, are you, as their parent, legally required or morally required to give it to them?
No, I'm not required to keep them alive beyond normal circumstances like that. But I am required if,
and so
let's say,
it's the exact same thing if they were living.
My body.
It's the exact same thing if they were living in your body as opposed to just in your house. They live in your house, and you don't need to give them your liver if they need a liver. It's not necessary. You'll find another way around it. If they were living in your body, you would also have the right to say, hey, you don't get to use my organs anymore.
So either way, you're saying if they're in my body, I have the right to kill them. And
I'm saying you have the right to remove them from your body, even if that results in their death.
If it results in the death, or if killing them is the way that I get them out.
Yeah, that's a weird semantic. You're using a weird semantic there. Like abortion pragmatically could be done. Abortion pragmatically, and we're taking your word for it, and I actually am highly dubious. But you're hinging your whole argument on a potential pragmatic choice that the doctors make. If I'm just going to grant you that you're correct, pragmatically, they absolutely could do it in the opposite. They absolutely could remove them first and let like that is a thing that could be done. So you are hinging your whole argument.
Talk about that really quick. If they remove a 24-week-old fetus and then kill it, is that not a live birth followed by a killing of a 24-week-old fetus that's now a baby?
No one is killing babies outside of the womb.
Yeah, no.
So if they take a 24-week fetus and take it outside their womb, what is that now? Is that a baby that was born alive? Or do they have to kill it to make sure that doesn't happen first?
So that would be about halfway through a pregnancy. So this is a non-viable thing that cannot live on its own as far as I know. Again, not a medical doctor.
Sure. Let's talk about 10-week-old.
But we're talking about something that cannot live on its own. It would die all on its own. That's,
talk about a 10-week-old. If you take a 10-week-old fetus out while it's still alive, once it's out,
I give you the exact same answer.
It is a baby. It is a baby, and you are not allowed to kill it.
No, it isn't. So I disagree with that analysis. But even if we agree that any clump of cells with unique DNA at any stage ever that comes out of a uterus is now considered a baby, if we were to agree on that, it doesn't change my stance one bit. You have a right to decide who is living in your body.
But you don't have the right to decide who you can kill unless there's high risk of severe harm.
You're not killing, you are ending a pregnancy.
But this is where it is important that we finalize if I'm right or wrong. Because
in all the scenarios you just gave, you absolutely could take whatever is alive out of it and put it on the table and let nature take its course. That is a thing that could pragmatically be done. We wouldn't necessarily agree that's the best way for things to happen, but that's all. But you're arguing within the procedure, not the morality of it.
That's not something that happens, though. We can agree that right now.
No, but that's fine. But pragmatically, hey, go ahead. Pragmatically, the way I described it is a way it could be done. So you were talking about
I'm
a procedure. You are talking about a procedure versus whether this is a moral choice. If you want to advocate that abortion is fine, but it should be done in a different way, neat.
Yeah, that's fine.
So this is where the why I was talking about duties as a parent. If you put your kid in a pool who can't swim and they die because you just didn't want to be a parent anymore, you said, you know what?
You voluntarily. Parents who are taking care of live children are voluntarily entering into a contract to take care of that child.
I just said now it's going against my bodily autonomy to carry my 6-month-old. There's a pool right here. You just let it go in the pool. Whatever happens. I wash my hands of it.
That is a fundamentally and obviously different thing. And it's ridiculous for you to try to conflate the two.
Can I hear why?
Because it's not a bodily autonomy question.
It's not.
This is a big sticking point for me. So if you can convince me I'm wrong, that would be huge.
Because, so a couple of things. Number one, because you have already had these children and are already taking care of them. Of course, you have bodily autonomy to decide that you don't want to anymore. There are options that you can take to make sure that it's not arbitrary at all. It's not arbitrary at all. If you let me finish my point, we get there. So you've already entered into this, and now you have steps to take to preserve both of your bodily autonomy and also the lives of those children. In the case of someone who is pregnant, if we agree with what you're saying these medications do, which again, I can't stress enough, I don't. But even if we're agreeing with it, if that's the only way that we can get through this, then we are still fundamentally protecting someone's bodily autonomy. That still matters. Also, we can then get into discussions over personhood and at what stage somebody becomes a person. But that was one of the reasons why Roe v. Wade was passed in the first place, because literally nobody, medical, scientific, psychological, philosophical, could agree. The point is, saying I could just let my kids drown today so that I stop having to worry about them is the same thing as saying I should have an abortion because I'm the victim of rape or incest or something, or I can't financially, emotionally, bodily, whatever, take care of this kid, or I just physically don't want to, or I'm sick, or I'm hurting, or whatever. Any reason under the sun, I want my body to work the way I want my body to work. Those are grossly disproportionate and inappropriate things to compare.
Okay. So I hear your point. So I don't agree with it. If my bodily, you said in a point that you have to worry about both your bodily autonomy and the health of the kid. With, let's say it's a 6-month-old that's already been born. Okay.
Sure.
I'm the only person other than the kid around for 10 miles. And all of a sudden my bodily autonomy says, I don't want to carry the 6-month-old anymore. If I want it, can I leave it outside in the middle of the blizzard because my bodily autonomy is saying no more? Or like
you're using the word bodily autonomy. You're using the word bodily autonomy in a way that it is never used legally. You seem to be now claiming that I can drive over people on the sidewalk because I wanted the bodily autonomy to not hold on to my steering wheel. Like you are using this. You're using bodily autonomy. So but you're trying to say the bodily autonomy argument doesn't carry, and then you are attempting to apply it to situations. Sorry, go ahead.
I would like you to finish what you were saying, because I think what you were saying was very important, Paul. But
can you define bodily autonomy?
Bodily autonomy would be using the components of your body in the way that you choose.
How does that not apply to driving or carrying my 6-month-old?
It's the right to make decisions about your body and decide what your body is doing and how it's being utilized. It doesn't. If I don't want my elbow to be at 90 degrees, doesn't go on. Saying that I have the right to make decisions about my body does not then extend to say I have the right to make decisions about someone else's body. So I don't get to drive my car on the sidewalk or leave a kid out in the rain to die because I'm using my body however I want to, and that involves killing people. And that is fundamentally different than saying, I'm going to put you on mute because you keep fucking interrupting us at this point. It's really annoying. We are saying that you have the right to choose what happens to your body and how you use your body. But your rights end at the limits of someone else's body. There's that old saying, the freedom to swing my fist ends at your nose, right? So I don't get to say, I have autonomy over my body. I would like to go kill somebody today, and that's my bodily right to do so. That doesn't make any sense. It does, however, make sense to say, I have a right to my own body. Therefore, I'm not going to allow someone to hurt me to sustain themselves. I'm not going to let someone live inside of myself. If the freedom to use my body ends at someone else's body, then someone living inside my body is certainly under the jurisdiction of my bodily autonomy, seeing as they're in it. These are very different things, and the fact that you're pretending that they're not is gross and inappropriate. I will now bring you back.
So first, I just want to say I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on it. I know I interrupt too much, so sorry about that. But
I appreciate you taking accountability. That's fine. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I talk to my wife. She'll say the same thing. So what I wanted to say was I made a quick quid that probably wasn't appropriate, but when you said that your right to use bodily autonomy ends where someone else is dying, I said, I think you just became pro-life. Probably not appropriate. I'm just that maybe not the best.
If you listen to the rest of what I just said, you will have heard why that isn't true.
Yeah, sure. So I'm still confused on why me, and this is what I was trying to say before, me keeping my arm at like 90 degrees elbow flexion and maybe 30 degrees abduction to hold a child is, let's say, for 10 minutes. Let's say I just don't want to do that anymore. How is that not my bodily autonomy to say, no, I don't want to do this anymore?
It's not because the child doesn't need... the child doesn't... the child doesn't need your body to live. The child doesn't need any part of you. It doesn't need any of your cells. It just needs your actions. And you have your child does not need any cell from your body. You could be separated from plastic for the rest of your life, and you could still parent that child.
Mm-hmm. And it's still going against my bodily autonomy because I don't want to use my arm.
You don't understand what bodily autonomy is.
That's the biggest issue. You keep conflating the term bodily autonomy being the rights to how your body is utilized, what's going on with it, who gets to live in you, things like that, with personal responsibility, with duty of care, with legal responsibility in a society. You keep using the word bodily autonomy in place of words like individual freedom or words like, just wanton desire to do whatever. And that's not at all what those things are. That's why I keep saying these are inaccurate and inappropriate comparisons, because it is diminutizing how serious bodily autonomy actually is. I have bodily autonomy. That does not mean that I get to kill anybody. That does not mean that I get to starve anybody. That doesn't mean that I get to go kick people or drive my car stupid or anything like that. These are differences. And when we talk about children that are already alive, I don't like to conflate legality and morality too much, but we do have a framework for how you need to take care of that kid. That's what duty of care is all about. So like that's a fundamentally different thing. And like Paul just said, even if you're talking about, well, I still have to use my body to feed this kid, you don't need to give that kid one single cell of your body. If you are pregnant, on the other hand, your entire body is functioning to sustain the life of that child, with huge implications, even if it goes entirely well. Pregnancy, as I said before, is not a benign condition in any way. So you are making major life-altering changes to your body, cell by cell, to influence this child's life, as opposed to I just don't want to hold it and feed it anymore. And that's simply not a correct comparison.
All right. So I don't want to interrupt. Is it good for me to respond now?
Sure.
I guess, and then we'll move on. It's been about 30 minutes.
Yeah, okay. So I got 2 points to make, and this might be it. I understand there's time, but first, if it has to be like cells moving from my body to the child, let's just say in this blizzard, I'm still the only one around, but now I'm actually the mom who's currently breastfeeding. The child needs breast milk. I don't want to give energy that I need from my body to this child. I don't want this child touching me.
There's still different things, dude.
So then I think this comes to the bigger thing that might move us somewhere. I'm not sure. I think we have different definitions of bodily autonomy.
We clearly
with the definition.
We very clearly do.
I agree with it.
I think you should look it up and then come back to the call again.
I agree with the definition Mr. Paul said. I fail to see how my examples don't follow it, but that's besides the point. Let me ask another question. Do you believe bodily autonomy is absolute?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Is there anything that can make you violate your right to bodily autonomy?
I mean, can or should? Like, I don't know what you're getting at. Get to the point. What are you driving towards?
So I'm saying bodily autonomy is not absolute. There are certain responsibilities that come before that. One is not killing your fellow human organism. And
hold on. Gohan, if you want this to be a hypothetical, you have to use our definition of bodily autonomy, not yours, because we're not playing in your sandbox. So with our definition, where we are always allowed to prevent people from harming us, we are always allowed to let people from harming our body. Re-ask the question with that version.
You mind if I ask a question based off exactly what you said, but that's a little bit different? So you're saying you are allowed to use self-defense for bodily autonomy if there's a harm. What if that harm is somebody is going to come and accidentally kick you in the leg while they're tripping? How far can you go in self-defense there? Can you kill them before that happens?
But that's not the question. The question isn't how far. You were asking, am I always allowed to defend myself? Now you're asking a weird side thing about the appropriateness of the defense. But you and I would agree that there is always a defense that is appropriate.
No.
I'm allowed to put a pillow between my shin and your leg.
Right.
There's always a defense that is appropriate. I don't have to let anyone kick me in the shin, right?
I mean, what if the only way to prevent that was to actually kill them?
Yeah. I don't have to let anyone...
So you can use lethal force to make sure nobody...
You've slid this into the... If you've created it's always appropriate to defend yourself, and we are debating which actions are proportional. Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't. Yes. That thumbs up there is not meant to be a thumbs up for you. You're asking, are you always allowed to defend yourself? And that's what bodily autonomy is. And the answer is yes. Sure. You're always allowed to defend yourself.
Even if the only option is lethal force, non-lethal issue.
You're adding a whole separate thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're saying you're always allowed to defend yourself.
I like where you're going.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm now just in a repeat myself land for us. So go ahead.
No. I liked where you're going. I wasn't saying that to stop you. I was saying that just I have a totally different thing just in a minute.
Can I keep asking Mr. Paul?
Yeah, please do.
So, Mr. Paul, you're saying you're always allowed to use self-defense to defend yourself. What if the only level
of self-defense... bodily autonomy... I'm just saying that's what bodily autonomy is. When we are talking about bodily autonomy and you want to pose hypotheticals, you need to pose it within that framework.
Okay.
For us to give you an answer.
It's the only level of self-defense to make sure you don't get kicked in the shin. I think that was your framework to make sure you don't get kicked in the shin. You have to
that was a thing, sure, yeah.
So the only way to prevent that from happening is killing the 5-year-old kid to make sure you don't get kicked in the shin. Is that appropriate under your standpoint?
I can't picture that.
I would say no, but like, what's the end of that conversation then? Are you going to say that pregnancy is akin to getting kicked in the shin?
No. So I'm saying most pregnancy, actually all pregnancy has risk. Most pregnancy does not have high risk of severe harm. If the severe harm is not high enough to kill this, if it's not high enough to kill this 5-year-old, it should not be high
our
enough
definition. So what you're saying is you don't think that people always have the right to defend themselves.
Correct.
And we disagree.
And I think that's issue. So that's kind of where I wanted to get, and I'm happy we can kind of come to some understanding of each other.
Let me ask you some follow-up questions there, Gohan, and then we'll move on because it's already been 40 minutes and we got several other calls left. But let's rapid fire through some of these. You seem like the big hang up here seems to be in like preserving the life of that child. After the child is born, like they could have a terrible life. You're pro-life. You made sure that this person gave birth to a child, and now they have a horrible life of poverty and destitution. Should the mother be forced to go to college and get a degree so that they can get a better job to improve the life of that child and make sure that they don't die long after being born from traceable things like poverty and disease?
I think that's a fair question. We kind of got into it the last time I called you. I think I was on with Shannon Q and you. But no, I don't think somebody should be forced to give the child the best possible outcome. I mean, every parent should be encouraged to do that, but no, you can't be forced.
So
you can only be forced to kill.
You think they should be forced to give birth to a child? You think they should be forced to give birth to a child, but there's no obligation then to make sure the child is healthy or safe?
No, so you have to, as a parent, I mean, it depends if you give it up for adoption. If you give the kid up for adoption, you've relinquished your rights. But if you're the only one there at the time, then you have a duty to make sure that child is safe. And if you don't do that,
example where you were talking about how you were the only person around, there is no adoption, right?
Yeah,
and you live in you're in abject poverty. You're going to do your best to keep this kid safe, but you live in a dangerous, crime-ridden area. You have a very low fixed income, and you have no good food in the house. You live in a food desert. So there's bad education, bad food, no money, high crime rate. Should this person be forced to improve their life in order to protect that child, or is that child allowed to just live a very violent, very brief life in wherever this place is?
Yeah, so I think this is kind of, I'm sorry I'm bouncing around on different movies. Right now, this is reminding me, except for the crime rate, it's reminding me of Lilo and Stitch. If anybody has seen that movie, when Lilo is getting repossessed by the government because the sister is not able to care for her. The sister doesn't get in trouble, but if somebody doesn't have the ability to
we said in this example, there is no one else around. There's no one else this child can go to. There's no government. There's no adoption. I'm asking you, do you think this person should be forced to improve the life of this child even after they are born? Or are they allowed to feed this baby nothing but canned green beans, and then eventually they get shot up walking to school, and there's no heat in the house, or are they forced to go to school and get a good education and then get a better income and take care of this kid?
I think if you're doing everything you can for your kid, there's no problem with that. But I mean, no, you should not be forced to go get a better education.
So fundamentally, the idea is you just want to force people to give birth. That's the main point. You want to force people who are pregnant to have those children. After that, it's kind of whatever.
Force people to not kill their kids,
which would result in them giving birth, right? 9
But Forrest is describing.
What about this then? Sorry, what about this then? if pregnancy is killing a kid and we want to protect that, wouldn't it make a lot of sense to limit pregnancy? Should we be forcing people to use contraception until they are surely ready to have a child?
No, I mean, I think, again, it's a good idea, but no, I don't think you can force anyone to use contraception.
I didn't ask if you can. I said, should we?
No,
I don't think you can end abortion either.
I don't think you should force anyone to use contraception. If I fail to use contraception, how many kids do I directly kill? 0. If
but you produce them,
have an abortion,
and then they could go on to have horrible lives and or even be killed by abortion. You're creating the situation in which abortions happen. So shouldn't that be stopped?
Am I now culpable for every action that child takes when they grow up too? Or is it just...
Not even what I asked.
So you're saying if I create life and then they get aborted later against my choosing, now I'm responsible for that because I helped create that life? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that you are part of that. You created this life and then it's ending, it's being ended. So shouldn't we, rather than grappling with whether or not to end a life, just stop life from being made in the first place until we are sure that it's going to happen and it's going to be ready?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very similar to what I said, where if I'm a part of that life being ended later in abortion, I'm also a part of that life becoming a murderer when they grow up. So, I mean,
so I'm going to ask the same question then.
I'm saying no. And the reason is because of the example I gave to counter your example.
So when it comes to having sex, you're pro bodily autonomy. Nobody can force you to use contraception. Nobody can force you to decide when to have a kid. After the child is born, you're pro bodily autonomy. Nobody can force you to get an education. Nobody can force you to live your life in any particular way. Nobody can force you on where you're going to live or what kind of situation you're going to be in. But while you are pregnant, all of a sudden bodily autonomy goes out the window. You are forced to carry a child that you don't want. You are forced to allow someone else to live inside your body.
You are so close. Because after the child is born, I know you guys disagree with me on this, but I still say you have the duty, regardless of bodily autonomy, to care for that child.
I was the one who brought up duty of care. I didn't say care for them. I said have a healthy and safe life. You can feed your kid and keep them inside and still live in a very dangerous, nasty area. High crime rate, high pollution. You live in Jet, Oklahoma, not Jet, Oklahoma. There's Pitcher, Oklahoma, which has these giant mountains of lead, and people get horrible lead poisoning from living there. It's a ghost town. You could go live in Pitcher, Oklahoma with your child. You're free to do so and make sure that child has a horrible, short, violent, nasty, painful, very short life, because that's bodily autonomy, right?
You can't get in trouble for moving to Short, Oklahoma. Where did you say?
Pitcher.
Yeah, you
Pitcher, Oklahoma.
That's not a problem. Pitcher, Oklahoma.
That's not a problem, you said?
No, you should not be able to get in trouble for moving to Pitcher, Oklahoma, which
So what I said is actually completely true. It wasn't wrong. I wasn't very close. I was dead on the money. You think that bodily autonomy applies when you're having sex, and you think the bodily autonomy applies after you've had a kid, but you don't think the bodily autonomy applies while you're pregnant. Paul, I'll let you have the last word, and then we're going to move on. We're 45 minutes in.
Go ahead. What we're trying to describe is not any of the scenarios you're describing. The only thing that bodily autonomy would apply to is if you were on an island with just you and a kid, and the only thing that you could do to save the kid is to feed them parts of your body. That you would you be legally obligated? Would you be legally obligated to chop off your leg to feed it to that child, and then the next day chop off your other leg, and the next day chop off your arm? Are you legally obligated to do that in a scenario where the only way to feed the child is with your body?
Okay, fair question. I understand this might be it for the day, but that's fair. We've been going on for a little while, but
so that's what we're talking about with bodily autonomy, where your body is being used for the care.
Yes. So
and breast milk isn't the same.
This is super not.
Why? Are you saying you can go up to anybody and take breast milk? Or does that
First of
contradict
all-
their bodily autonomy?
First of all, other options beyond breast milk exist. Also, yes, wet nurses do exist. People who do
You're on
also
an island by
breastfeed other people's
yourself.
children. But at the end of the day,
No,
that's
Forrest-
all also up to
Forrest-
them and their bodily autonomy.
Sorry, Forrest. Paul said you're on an island by yourself.
You're on an island. Sorry, you're on an island by yourself. Do you, as the dad, are you required to cut off your leg so that your child has something to eat?
No, so that's why I said there's high risk of severe harm. Cutting off my leg would qualify as severe harm.
So you have this weird thing where you think that there are degrees in which where this suddenly stops applying.
I think that's not just me. I think that's everybody. I think you have the same value. You won't kill somebody unless there's high risk of severe harm.
I just want to be clear. Like, you do understand
If there-
that if you have a uterus in this situation, there is a higher risk of severe harm than there is for you, right?
If any,
Like, we're on the same page with that.
sorry, ask that
Like,
one more time.
inherently. You do understand that if you are a person with a uterus, there is inherently a higher risk of harm in this situation than there is for you, Gohan, as a man, as a phenotypic male.
Sorry, I don't think I said if I was male or not. But
But actually, hold on.
on.
Gohan, but hold on. The cutting off your leg, who's at greater risk? The child who's going to starve or you cutting off your leg?
Right. So the child who's going to starve is. Sorry, if I could respond to Mr. Forrest really quick, and then I'll try to respond to this. But Mr. Forrest, you were saying that the woman or the uterus person has more risk, and that's 100% true. Whoever has the uterus is going to have harm. There's 100% of harm coming to that person, 100% chance.
Yes.
The only question is, how high is that harm? How severe is that harm? Is that harm getting kicked in the shin, or is it losing the leg? If it's losing the leg, I say you have a right to use legal self-defense, just as you would if a 20-year-old man is trying to chop off your leg. You have the right to self-defense. But if it's low harm, then
pretty
no,
obvious.
you don't have the right to lethal self-defense.
I think it's pretty obvious that it's way, way more severe than getting kicked in the chin and the shin, and extends right up all the way to death. And even in average cases, has lifelong side effects that are no way pleasant. It sounds like we're talking in circles, and we've been doing this call for twice as long as any other call. So we're going to go ahead and move on, go on. But I appreciate you calling.
Yes, sir.
I'm just glad that Shannon Q wasn't here, because I think she wouldn't have cared about this call at all. I think she would have been really boring. She just wouldn't have been interested in this call. You know, she never really has much to say about this topic. And I'm glad I had you.
I was she is down the hall, and I actually kind of was wondering if she might burst in at some point, but we'll see.
No, I think she doesn't care. I think that the best time.
She's just bored.
I think
she's
the
apathetic
best
towards
outcome
this.
for that call. I think the best way that call could have been handled is to have two white men talk about it as best as we. I think that's the best way to do it. Is just to have us.
Ideal
two guys.
scenario, yes, absolutely. There's a real shortage of white dudes talking about shit. Yeah,
talking about abortion. Exactly. Yeah, Shannon would have just. She wouldn't have understood. I don't think she would have understood. I think that's the problem.
No.
I feel like she's going to drive to Oklahoma to slap me. We've got a couple more calls here on the line. We got 3 left, and then we'll wrap things up.
I guess we'll try and rapid fire.
We're going to go for this person's been on the line for an hour and a half. We've got Joel, pronouns he, him, calling in from Curly Octopus. Who's a Christian who has an argument for the logos of the existence of God. Joel, you were on the line with Forrest and Paul. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going, guys? I've been watching the whole thing. I had to walk away a couple times. I almost needed some Tylenol or something. My goodness.
We don't have that option, Joel.
I wish I'm jealous.
You guys have almost the patience of a saint. I I can barely take half of these arguments. Like, and you guys were just sitting there through the whole thing. I was like, I can barely sit here and listen to it, much less participate. So I'm doing good. I just got off a 12-hour shift after my third one, so I'm pretty beat. So we'll see how this goes, if I can even compile my thoughts, coherently. But no, I think this is a very interesting one that I haven't really heard submitted to, stuff like this. And I think it's a very interesting, structure about it. And really what I'm trying to do is present a more,
Joel, before you start, are you sharing this with us because you think it's novel, or are you sharing this with us because it's why you believe?
It's certainly not novel. This is an ancient argument, actually, from all the way back from St. Augustine.
Is it why you believe?
It's certainly a way to understand God that I think isn't thought about very often, but it's still an ancient understanding of
Is it why you believe?
Yes, I would say it's part of the compartmentalization of why I hold to my faith.
Okay. I've been through enough of these where people find an esoteric thing that they just think is intellectually fun versus as long as it's in your pantheon of why, as long as it's in your toolkit of why you believe in God, go ahead.
Yeah,
I also really quickly, I'm gonna ask one more question, then I promise I'll let you talk. It says here on the call screen, you said you wanted an argument from the Logos, and Logos is capitalized. So I know the word Logos to mean logic and reason in terms of argument style, and I also know the word Logos to mean a theological term being the Word of God. Which one of those do you mean?
Dang, you're already halfway there. It's just one and the same thing. So that's kind of how the premise of the argument goes. Basically, if you imagine how, say, if you guys ever played Sims on the computer or something like that, you can sort of assert your will within the game, right? And you can, make decisions, and you have agency and will and stuff like that within the Sims game, and you interact with the world. What the Logos would be, in at least Augustine's mind, understanding John 1:1. I know you guys don't you don't submit to the authority of Scripture, but this is, of course, the construct.
In the beginning was the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Got it. Yep.
Yes, exactly. And again, in Colossians and Revelation. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So the Logos, as understood, exactly how Forrest there put it, actually is the same thing. That's exactly why the author of John's Gospel uses that word Logos, because he's appealing to the Greek understanding, philosophical understanding of the structuring, the reasonable structuring of reality, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like the code that is behind the program of the Sims game, that is informing all of the elements within the digital game how to behave. So it's subsisting the entire system of the Sims game in a similar way, and analogically how the Logos is subsisting all of our reality. Paul, you said something very interesting about reality. You said truth is that which conforms to reality earlier in the show, and I was thinking it's a good way to think about it is that reality is that which conforms to the Logos. So in the same way that truth conforms to reality, reality then conforms to the Logos.
Why? That's just a definition. Okay, that's just a definition. You're basically saying that reality equals God, and that's just defining God into existence.
Well, God is I'm not defining him into existence. I would say God is to be, right? So this is St. Thomas Aquinas' argument.
But this is God. How is that not a defining him? And how is that just merely a definitional?
Why is it different? Well, because you just say God isn't, and then he doesn't exist.
No. Well, of course, like a logical argument should have an ultimate end, right? So it should point you towards the actual truth of the matter. So the way that the historical apostolic church has understood God, and especially in the Gospel of John, so this is going all the way back almost 2,000 years. So it's not just a vague, rogue, vogue definition of God. This is actually how God has been understood since the apostolic era through the medieval and through to now.
Yes, but why should we believe it?
Well, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to present a coherent worldview of how it's reasonable to come to the conclusion that there. So let's look at it this way. So if we were to look at the very foundation, like fundamental aspect of reality, right? You might say, especially if you're a naturalist, materialist, you might say it's made up of quanta or some sort of energy particles or some like physical thing, right? And what the logos would be the underpinning language system. Obviously, I'm not talking about letters in the alphabet. I'm talking about like a system, structured system of meaning and purpose that informs reality at the fundamental level, how to be, how to behave, and how to exist. So it's like the it's kind of like what DNA is to a cell.
Would Forrest and I call this the... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think you and I were about to say the same thing. You just described the laws of physics. Like all you're doing is you're saying
absolutely.
The laws of physics and reality is God or is the word of God or whatever. And you're doing exactly what Paul is accusing you of doing. You're defining God into existence. You're saying, here's something that we agree on. I call that God, therefore God is real. And I don't know why you would do that.
Well, so the thing is, the difference is that God is not just existence. I'm not saying that. I'm saying God subsists reality, right? So the same way that you might say reality subsists truth, because you would define truth as that which conforms to reality. So you can say reality subsists truth, is what I'm saying the logos is to reality. So reality is that which conforms to the logos.
So then let's back that up.
Yeah.
Why do you believe that this God is subsisting reality? Because just saying God is these things doesn't do anything for us. Why do you believe that?
Okay, well, when you get to this level of like, the ontological end of defining things, it starts to get recursive because, because if you define truth, you could say that is which is true kind of deal, unless you're trying to reference it with something else. Here we're talking about a fundamental.
You just quoted my definition of truth. You just quoted my definition of truth and seemed to like it. So
I did. I do like it. I agree with it. I'm just saying at this like fundamental, like ontological baseline of definitions and semantics, you do get to kind of like a floor. So it's kind of hard. I'm trying to say more how this is an operative explanation of how the logos is understood in Christianity.
But Joel, with all respect, like, yes, there is a floor to where you can recursively go back and back and back. Like I can say the universe exists and that it just fucking does, right? But I can still explain to you why I think the universe exists. I can point to evidence of the universe around me. I can talk evidence of the Big Bang, evidence of evolution, evidence of processes within the universe, evidence of the universe itself. I can say, if you ask me why I know the universe exists, the first thing I'd say is I'm looking around and I live in the bitch. You know what I mean? Like, that's something rather than just saying it exists because it exists because it exists. And this is what the definition is. And this is how I call it. And all the like, so why do you know God exists? Why do you believe in this thing? Don't tell me what it is. Why do you believe in it? What's some evidence for it?
Okay, well, so it depends exactly what you think would constitute evidence for it. Because if we're talking about a metaphysical
your
being,
favorite.
What? Your favorite?
The biggest one for you, because that's a whole other conversation. I'm not trying to be rude, but like asking me what my evidence for God is an entirely different conversation that won't get us anywhere right now. So your best evidence, the thing that you point to convince you that God is real.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get to is my answer on the type of evidence that I would give you would depend on what you would constitute as evidence. So if I gave you
what convinces you, Joel?
Well, first of all, is the reasonability of it, right? So it's a very structured way of thinking. It has a hierarchy of value and of power and of causation. So it's an easy way to like structure the idea of reality itself. To start, as a premise.
I want to clarify. You think it has high explanatory power? Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So then my follow-up question then is, I can now invent something that has high explanatory power. I've done it several times in the show. Roland the Closet Goblin is a big fan favorite. You know, there's this goblin that lives in my closet and grants wishes, and he disappears whenever I open the door and all this other stuff. Like, I can say that this thing is the reason for anything. I can say that Roland is the one who made the universe. Roland is the one who guided evolution. Roland is the one that makes the stars burn. Roland is in the core of every star, shoveling hydrogen into the furnace, making it work like that. I can say that and it has explanatory power, but that doesn't mean it's true. So, like, what's a reason to believe that God is real, not just a reason to say that God is useful?
Okay, so we've agreed that it could have a type of explanatory power, even though you have semantically applied a different semantic to what you might call is subsisting reality.
Absolutely.
So
if there is actually, and forgive me if this is, tell me if I'm mischaracterizing what you're saying here. If there is actually an intelligent causal agent that is in control of either the creation and or the functionality of the universe, then yes, that would be highly explanatorily beneficial. It would help a lot. It would raise a lot more questions than it answered, but holy shit, it would answer a lot of questions too. However, I'm more curious to know if such a thing actually exists than if it's useful.
Okay, so let's start with, like, let's just give that, let's concede that at least let's just give me that, just so we can, you know, not go back and forth on that.
Sure.
So I would say that he has revealed himself to us. That's kind of like the whole thing. That's like you just said, it would have immense explanatory power, and that's why this is such a big deal. If it is the case that the Logos itself, the subsisting code or syntax or language or whatever you want to call it, the informational reference system or reality itself became human and manifested itself incarnate into a human being and showed itself to us as if like the code somehow in the Sims game became like one of the little Sims and like manifested itself to the other Sims in the game.
That would be very cool, Joel. Did that happen? And so how can I know?
This is the Christian claim, right? So I'm just trying to establish, at least, I'm not trying to necessarily convince you. I'm just at least trying to give you that the logical like atmosphere of exactly what is in the Christian's mind of what's happening here. So first, a good definition of God.
I probably shouldn't do this, but for the sake of expedition, let me grant you that if Jesus was the Son of God and died for our sins, that's great. How do I know that happened?
Well, so now we get into the history and archaeology, I'd say. You know, I would, as a quick just quip, I would point you to the Shroud of Turin. And I would encourage you to prove that. No, I know. Trust me, I get it.
That's
but
right.
There has been recent developments and such, and the hoax was unhoaxed.
Convince Christians first. Convince Christians first, and then come back to the show.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, first of all, I
promise
hold on. That's a bit unfair.
I have to point out that's a bit uncharitable, because if you were asking for evidence, I gave you just off the top of my head like a type of physical archaeological evidence that still hasn't been thoroughly explained.
The Shroud of Turin has been thoroughly methodologically.
No, it hasn't. I would strongly encourage you to prove it wrong.
And if no, it has not. If you want to say it hasn't, then we can go with that. Here's the biggest thing that I have going on is that it sounds to me like you're dancing around the word faith, and you're doing everything in your power to not just say the word faith.
Oh, we can talk about faith. I'm perfectly fine. I didn't want to say the word faith because I would assume that we had a different semantic of what faith is. So I was trying to describe it in a different way.
What you keep doing here, Joel, is you're saying that, you know, the how do I say? You're saying we were willing to grant you that Jesus existed and he rose from the dead and that he died for our sins. And sure, and the Shroud of Turin's real too. We'll throw it in there, right? Yeah, why not? The problem is that every single one of the claims about Jesus's life is its own claim that needs its own evidence, that needs to stand on its own 2 feet. So even if I agree with you that Jesus existed, I'm bringing a lime thing over here and I'm real burpish. If I agree with you that Jesus existed, that doesn't prove that he walked on water. That doesn't prove that he was the Son of God. That doesn't prove that he was the God, that there was a God for him to be the son of. That doesn't prove that he healed the sick. That doesn't prove that he healed the blind. That doesn't prove that he cured leprosy. None of that. Water to wine, pick your fate. It doesn't prove any of them. If we agree with the most important part, that he died and rose again, that doesn't prove anything else. And so what you have here is a book full of claims, which you need evidence for all of them. And if you say, well, there's a Shroud of Turin and there's this blood-soaked rag that kind of looks like a guy that was crucified, and that guy was probably Jesus, even if I believe you, that doesn't give me anything concrete to go off of. And it also doesn't solve the problem of the fact that the Christian God is horrible to me. So, like, not to me personally, like, he's not doing things to me. I'm saying my opinion of him is that he is awful. So, like, I even if I agree with everything you're saying so far, which I super don't, but even if I did, you wouldn't have demonstrated the divinity of this creature. You wouldn't have demonstrated a reason why I should worship it, even if it is divine. You haven't shown me why this God is necessary or useful or good. That doesn't take me.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not like I could just encapsulate all of that within like one response. So yeah, I was trying to track through a thought process.
But you need something, and like the Shroud of Turin ain't it. So like, can you give us something better?
I was trying to point through something that has been scientifically scrutinized, like to a high degree, and something that you can look into yourself as a physical type of archaeological tangible evidence. That's all. That's why I just brought it up at the top of my head.
Yeah, there's nothing about that requires supernatural. Even if I grant all of the, and I don't. All the findings about it. Nothing of there shows me as Jesus that there was anything supernatural about it. But you started this call giving us scripture interpretation so that you could say belief in God is reasonable, not that it's necessary or not that it's even the inevitable conclusion. You said several times that this is, if I'm remembering correctly, that this is what makes it reasonable. And we're still looking for why should we believe it?
Well, I mean, it gets a little, again, like it's kind of like a recursive thing. You know, it's kind of like why you should believe that truth is that which conforms to reality. It's kind of like one of those types of epistemic questions. So it's kind of hard. I would say.
Seriously, you think that? Sorry, hold on. You think that the belief in God is similar to agreeing to a definition?
No, not necessarily. I'm saying the substance of the argument when you say truth is that which conforms to reality, which tends to be substantially true. You believing that is a similar reasonability to believing that reality itself is subsisted by the Logos or God.
No, those are not analogous. That's me saying that the label that when I say truth, this is what I mean, is no different than when I say Bella, what I mean is the beagle sleeping beside me. I'm just telling you how I use a label. So I guess I don't understand what you're saying, that God is basically just fundamentally accepting a proposition.
Joel, if your phone fell asleep, we can't hear you. So tap your phone, make sure it's awake.
Oh my gosh, I was talking that whole time. Okay.
We didn't hear you, sorry.
No, that's all right. Okay, so no, I'm not saying that God is just believing in a proposition. That would be ludicrous, and no reasonable person should purport that. I'm saying that obviously there's a substantial argument behind the actual truthfulness of saying that truth is that which conforms to reality, in a similar way that there's an actual substantial truthfulness that 2 + 2 = 4. In a similar way, there's an actual substantial truthfulness that reality is subsisted by the Logos or God. If that makes sense.
I don't agree with anything you said. Like nothing in that do I agree with. Maybe it's a me problem. Forrest, is it a me problem? I don't agree.
So, I mean, I would say.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to be an ass. I was looking up the Shroud of Turin thing. I found this article from Catholic Weekly that said from last year that says new evidence supporting the Shroud of Turin is too strong to ignore, says journalist, not scientist. This was the first thing I could find that was saying that it's real and it's new stuff. And the whole thing that I'm looking over this thing repeatedly says that they say that the carbon dating was done wrong. Okay. And then they continue to say, like, however, there's all these other issues. Scientists are unable to replicate the image. They say that the image on the thing is impossible. They say that the way that this thing is, the way it looks, doesn't make any sense, and that it could only be possible. They then go on to say that it's possible if there was a super bright burst of electromagnetic radiation, and therefore the shroud confirms the gospel. So we don't, this is something that makes no sense physically. We are unable to recreate it. We have no idea. But if something ridiculous happened, then it would be real, and therefore it's real. And that's the best I can find. So like I wanted to see if maybe I'd missed something. I don't think I have. It sounds like more just people saying a bunch of bullshit about this and not actually citing any real science. But that's not the point of the call. I just wanted to know what you were talking about, dude.
So kind of how I formulate it in my head. So I was given a proposition of how the apostolic Christian church has understood God via the Logos, right? And Jesus Christ being the Logos manifest incarnate into a human being. And so that's the explanatory power.
But you understand how that's not useful, right?
Well, it's at least I'm just trying to present that perspective, right? At least the understanding behind it and how it can be reasonable.
I appreciate that, but you understand how it's not at all useful if we don't know if this God exists. Understanding how different people thought of the God and how they perceive the God and what their thoughts are about the God and the logos and the this and that doesn't really help us if this guy isn't real. And so, like, your claim that you're making, calling in as a Christian, especially, isn't just, hey, I think there might be some supernatural force here, and here's my way of thinking about it and how this might help. Your claim that you're making is there is a supernatural force. It uses he, him pronouns. It cares about whether or not you have butt sex. It's been watching this world for thousands of years, and it only cares about something sometimes.
Well, hold on. Hey, also, Forrest, I didn't say any of that. I didn't say any of what you just said.
That all comes with Christianity, because at the end of the day,
not necessarily, not the historic understanding.
You're not just saying that you believe in a supernatural force, Joel. You're saying you believe in a blood sacrifice that took place in Palestine 2,000 years ago that made a freaking contract that we all are now bound to. And there's this place called heaven and this place called hell. And you're making huge, expensive claims. So just saying this is the way that apostolic Christians have thought about this stuff for a little while, that isn't good enough. That doesn't actually do anything for us. You have to first tell us why that's
probably
real.
Because I haven't had much of a chance to develop the thought. I only gave the basic framework, and I haven't been able to actually explicate and expound upon that. So
then that'll be the last thing we do. And if we go somewhere it does, please give us, I'll let you go for a minute here. Tell us why you actually believe in this God. That's what we keep asking for. Give us the best reason why Paul and I should believe that this particular God is actually real, and we can test it. We can check it out. We can know.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would point you to the church fathers, the apostolic fathers. I don't know if you've read them before or engaged with them at all, but these guys are some of the smartest men who have ever lived in history.
I'm asking you, not them.
Well, no, you are asking me, but I defer to them as well, because they're where I get a lot of the substance of the Joel, faith substance from.
Joel, I'm sorry.
You're giving us footnotes.
I really am sorry. I really am sorry to keep interrupting you. I'm really not trying to be an asshole here, but like, if you ask me why I accept evolution, I'm like, well, go read Darwin. That doesn't work, right? I have to be able to give you actual evidence. So what is your actual evidence for this God?
I believe that this God has made himself known to us and manifest himself to us and shown to us. And I believe the way in which he did it and the way in which we understand it is reasonable, structured, and hierarchical in terms of its levels of, or I guess dimensions of rational thought. There's a way that you can arrive to that and understand it that is not unreasonable, and that can inform your faith. And if you want to talk about faith a little bit, I'll give you my conception of faith, just so we're all on the same page.
I want you to expound on what you just said. So you said he's revealed himself to us. I'm assuming you're including us in the us. So, and you said that if you examine that, you'll come to the same conclusion. So what are you talking about? What is this revelation that Paul and I are missing?
Well, the ultimate revelation, of course, is the person of Christ, right? So if it's true that the Logos itself was incarnate and manifest to us in the human flesh, then that is the ultimate icon or image of this God that we're talking about, okay? That is the belief.
None of us met him. None of us met him. No one on this call met Jesus.
You're talking about a 2,000-year-old carpenter. I've never seen him. So I need something to check.
Well, I assume you rely on other historical documents for Caesar and a bunch of other historical figures.
No.
Right. No? Okay, what do you rely on then?
I believe that Caesar existed. I hold incredibly little weight on any historical claim about him.
Okay. So Herodotus and like all these other Roman historians and such, do you put any faith or confidence level in what is written about the Roman Empire via the historians who were living at the time?
I'm not a historian. It puts us.
Well, I'm not asking you if it's historian. I'm asking if it's reasonable to rest your conclusions about the reality 2,000 years ago based on the text.
If this was the start of the call, if this was the start of the call, I would give you a very long answer, but we're at a short answer. So I will say I treat all historical supernatural claims identically. I don't think that Caesar was a god. I don't think Caesar performed any miracles. I don't think anything supernatural happened that was claimed about Caesar, and there are plenty of them, happened. I treat all supernatural historical claims identically. That's the cut to the chase version.
Yeah, okay. And for me, it's just even if I accept that Jesus existed, even if I accept that Jesus existed, I don't know. I'm pretty sure there are some historians out there that said that he does. But even if I accept that, we're right back where we were 20 minutes ago. That doesn't tell me anything. There was a guy named Jesus. Neat. That doesn't tell me if he was magical. That didn't tell me if he had any of the superpowers that the Bible explains. That doesn't tell me if there's a God. Like, a guy showing up doesn't tell me anything. I need actual evidence that something serious happened. If I can prove to you with historical records that Abraham Lincoln is real, I cannot then assume that he's a vampire hunter because there's a book about Abraham Lincoln hunting vampires, right? So proving that Jesus is real is not the same as proving that God is real or that miracles happen or any of that.
Well, so it's a cohesive thing, right? So it's not that you can really separate the two. There's like a logical path that you follow from.
Can.
Well, of course you can make distinctions and definitions. I'm saying there's a logical flow to it that I think shouldn't be stopped.
Go ahead and lay it on us then, and we'll wrap this up because we got two other people waiting for a couple hours. So go ahead. We won't interrupt for a minute.
Honestly, I just wanted two things. I've been trying to say them this whole thing, so I guess I'll throw them in there. They were supposed to be for the sake of discussion, but the first thing I think is this term supernatural. I think when people tend to say supernatural, they tend to say it like in a fantastical, magical, non-physical type of way. I would say a supernatural is just a higher order of the natural order. So it's not non-natural. It just means that it's a higher order of the natural plane of reality. So kind of like how a square is a shadow of a three-dimensional cube. That is how the physical realm or the natural realm is the supernatural, which would be the 3D cube. So it's like a higher dimension. Anyway, and then the second thing I wanted to clarify was my semantic of faith, which I think is extremely important to understand, especially if I call back in again. I don't believe that faith is infra-rational. I don't believe it's credulence, and I don't believe it's believing something in spite of the evidence. I believe that faith is supra-rational. So you're taking all the reason and evidence that you can possibly gather, and then faith is what you go beyond that to reach the conclusion when you can't reach it alone through reason or through your own rational faculties. So faith is not the absence of thinking and rational thought. It is actually using it to the max extent, and then faith is what is extended above that. if that makes sense. So it includes reason, it doesn't exclude it.
You described you used a different word and came to the exact same reason why I don't think it's valuable. So Joel, I feel like we haven't gotten anywhere, man. And you've been a very pleasant and very polite caller. I have nothing against you personally, but like, it's been 30 minutes and I feel like all we've gotten out of this whole thing is that you believe there's a God. And I still don't know why. And I get that you're a Christian. And I get that you think that Jesus was real and that he had magic powers and things like that. But like, you haven't told me why you believe any of these things. And I have nothing that I've gained out of this besides the fact that you believe in a God. So what I would like you to do, what I'd like to ask is that you just think about like, what is the best way? Like if you could pick like your top 5 and out of that, your top 3 and out of that, your top 1 best thing that you can say, if I say this to someone who knows nothing about God, it will demonstrate clearly that God is real. And I want you to call back with that because I want to know why you actually believe what you believe.
And preferably not relying on the Bible because that we don't believe that.
It'd be a bad time. It'd be a bad time. Yeah, for the same reason.
Yeah, I was trying to stray away from that. I was trying to keep it more towards the Logos and this more reality theory type approach.
That's just a Bible interpretation. That's how you started. Was just Bible interpretation. Yeah. So
no,
it was different words for the same things.
I was referring to the ancient Greek philosophical concept of the Logos. I wasn't necessarily doing biblical exegesis.
We'll come back to it next time. I appreciate you, Joel. Thanks so much for calling in.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Joel.
Like I said, it's nice enough, dude. We just didn't get anywhere. Nothing happened for 30 minutes. Just edged. We got 2 calls left. We're going to start with Emma Grace, pronouns they and she, calling in from Scratchy Cats, ex-missionary who wants to know, how is exportation of Western philosophy and science not continuing to perpetuate colonialism? Emma Grace, this is a big topic, and you've been on the hold for like 2.5 fucking hours. How are you today?
I wish I had scratchy cats. I'm actually calling from Satan's crotch because it's hot and sweaty down here in the last week of November.
Nice. So I'm sorry you had to wait for so long, and especially with us having to kind of cut things close at the end of the show here. But like, I would say that the exportation of Western philosophy and science can, but doesn't necessarily perpetuate colonialism. Philosophy more than science, especially considering the fact that science does have a very dark and racist history, but right now it's mainly used to improve the lives of people all around the world by giving them access to sanitation and medicine, things like that. Philosophy definitely can and has been known to plow over things. You can look at the structure of societies and how we typically associate gender norms and social structures like that. And
my background's in sociocultural anthropology. So.
Nice. So you get exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So like
I do.
Is that why you stopped doing mission work?
Like, actually, yes. Seeing like a lot of the bullshit, both in large organizations, and being like a support backed missionary and all that. And so I guess I'm just trying to know, is there a way to like decolonize white supremacy and Christo-fascism within aid work and or continue to be an ethical general global traveler? Because I still have that drive for justice and compassion and like an adventurous nature, but really haven't been able to get out of mutual aid in my own community since all
that's
that went
a
down.
Fucking great question. That's great. Do you want? So I have limited things that I would be able to talk about here, but I have some things. Paul, what are you thinking?
So the first thing I'll
take notes.
Point to is in my own denomination when I was a believer, I ended my Christian career in a denomination called the Christian and Missionary Alliance, which is entirely mission oriented and mission based. And during my tenure, during Bible school and other things, they trained us white kids from Saskatchewan to head out to other places. And during my career, they eventually figured out that what was far more effective and far cheaper and far better was to temporarily bring talented people over, give them training in specific fields like medical fields or dentistry or some of those kind of things, so that we could give them some of the best science, and then send them back with some new knowledge, and let them, they know their culture. They weren't going to, at least as directly, bring back some of those colonial ideas, right? Because what they were trained on with some of those things. And so I kind of, rightly or wrongly, still think that is a good strategy for helping globally. That that we help not by going, but by lending expertise where we have it, and or cash where we have it, without putting our boots on the ground there. And so
I would
that's
just build on that as well, to say that, like, I think the biggest, most important thing that I know of is number one is involving the community, not coming in as this white savior and just dumping resources on these places, taking away their identity, their autonomy, their dignity by just giving them all. So like, what do those people actually want, and how do they actually want it? And you are catering to their desires and their initiative rather than what you are deciding they need and how they need it. Also, extended responsibility. You're not just there to build the well and then leave. You're there to also, you're going to make sure that you're doing things in a sustainable and productive way, and that, whatever local terror group isn't just going to come in and destroy the well and use the pipes to build weapons, and it hurts the community more in the long run, right? You're not just painting the picture that you want to see, rather than actually correcting the problems that are there. And then to touch more on Paul's point, if you're going to be going there, if you're going to be giving anything, you need to be giving money, you need to be giving food, you need to be giving infrastructure, you need to be giving education. You do not need to be giving philosophy, religion, ethnocentrism, and your idea of what their culture should look like. That's what I would say is the main chunk in my understanding of how to decolonize this kind of stuff. It is also, I want to be very clear, not my area of expertise. It's just the stuff that I've learned along the way. So I'm probably missing something. But those are my and Paul's idea. What do you think about that, Emma Grace?
Well, you're speaking my language, honestly. Like, I did curriculum writing for reducing sexual assault and gender-based violence and stuff like that, and using modalities that are more compatible with the learning styles of the people I was with. But then I kind of look around and I see that, like, research has had a lot of poor track records in looking out for our own Western interests. Like, stuff is seemingly benign as like voluntourism, or insidious like testing population control with like depot injections in Indonesia and Bangladesh and stuff like that. And I'm just like wondering what can be done by, like, the things you're saying for like me, yeah, but what can also be done in the realm of science to stop perpetuating that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a tough, and you hit the fucking nail on the head talking about voluntourism. Like, yeah, absolutely. I went and helped the brown people, and now I'm a good person forever. Yeah, that shit happens a lot. So really quickly, I just looked up I'm looking for things, because I remember I was really interested in joining the Peace Corps at one time, and I remember the thing that really, like, I liked about it a lot was that there wasn't a lot of initiatives for like the kind of shit that I heard about on TV. Go to this place, give out sandwiches, and leave. It was go to this place and teach them how to grow better crops, or teach them, like, be an educator in this. Like, that was what they were doing. And so I was looking up stuff like that, and I found this group. It's called the Center for Humanitarian Leadership. I have not read this document yet, but a just cursory glance over this report seems pretty freaking tight. Peace Direct, African Development Solutions, Alliance for Peace Building, Women of Color Advancing Peace, Security, and Conflict Transformation. These are all the organizations that are on this report, and it's about decolonization of aid. Again, I'm going to say it again. I have not read this, but glancing over it, It looks pretty fucking cool. I'm putting the link to that in the chat right now. And there's the link to the main page that I got it from. You click where it says "Time to Decolonize Aid." It's in orange letters, and it has a bunch of stuff in here about unpacking the language and terminology. It kind of details out stuff about structural racism, decolonization. I love their term, the white gaze. That's great. And then they go into like what the chapter 6 here, what would a manifesto look like? And they talk about program development. Let me take a look really quick and just make sure this is worth anybody's time to glance over. Bleep, blop, bloop, bloop, bloop. So they're talking about, accepting uncertainty and messiness in humanitarian response. Don't look for perfect proposals. Take a chance to invest in local actors. Trust the people there. Be a bridge, not an expert. So all the same stuff that we're talking about here. Again, if you want to look through this and maybe this will resonate with you, I encourage everybody else to do the same and find parts that you do and don't like and challenge them and explore that further. And then I would also, you said you're an anthropologist. Did you study that? Did you get a degree in it?
My degree was in sociocultural anthropology and global communications, but also in Reformed theology and the Bible.
So then I bet you anything, you probably...
There's been like a lot of overlap with deconstruction as well because of the lens I received that education through.
Yeah, no, for sure. So then I would recommend, just for me, my first master's was in anthropology. It's fucking awesome. I'm so happy to talk to somebody else that digs it. And I think that I would reach out to my professors, especially like I can think of one in particular that was big on archaeological theory, helped me deconstruct my own heuristics of my own Western upbringing, helped me to realize places where I was dealing with a bunch of bullshit, ethnocentric, white supremacist shit that I was raised in without even thinking about it as a child in Oklahoma, and help take that apart and look at the world for what it actually is. I would reach out to her and be like, yo, I want to help this situation here. How do I do that without being an asshole? And have her kind of guide the way and talk to, or maybe go volunteer with the refugee program there at the university that I was at that time. I would recommend reaching back out to your old professors, especially the cultural ones, and ask.
But they're all Zionists, Forrest.
Fuck! Where'd you go to school, dude? That's awful.
In the South.
I take it back. Reach out to a different school with the different professors and talk to them. I guarantee there's somebody out there that can help us smarter than me. The idea there's somebody out there smarter than me is a no-brainer. That's plenty. But definitely I'm sure there's somebody out there that would be able to answer this question better for you. And like, look at like, when I just found these organizations that I was citing links to, I would check them and check reviews of them and make sure like to find out not whether or not somebody doesn't like them, who doesn't like them. Because if Zionists don't like them, you might be on the right track. And you might actually, it's like my thing. Every time I get hate mail from a Nazi, I'm like, I'm doing things correctly, So just, I would look into these things and see if you can find people to like volunteer with or to associate with and to like build your knowledge base from. Because the fact that you're asking these questions in the first place is fucking incredible. That's a huge step in the right direction. So now I would continue to find people who are smarter than me, who are able to continue shoring up your efforts and make sure that you're a valuable asset in the global community.
All right, that's cool. Thanks, y'all.
And then just for the audience, I would throw in one first. Operation Christmas Child is don't do it. It's evil. That's general. But second,
I totally didn't used to work for that organization.
Oh.
You've had a wild ride, by the way.
Yeah. And then, but one thing I would say is if you really feel like you do want to travel and you want to travel well, there are emergency response organizations that are great. So emergency response is a different thing than going in and building a well, right? It's like, oh, there was an earthquake. Or there's a fire that needs to be put out. Like some of those kind of things, I do think long-term education isn't going to help the community when it's on fire or if it's been flooded and things. So if you really do feel compelled to travel to help, that is a category where I think we are generally better at not colonizing than others. So I would just put that out there
I would
for
say
yourself and for the audience.
The best example of that I can think of off the top of my head is Doctors Without Borders. I mean, you have to be a medical professional to work with them, but I believe they have volunteer opportunities even here, stateside, where you can be doing really cool stuff to be saving lives all around the world, regardless of race, religion, politics, nationality, sex, gender, nothing. Like they're out there doing life-saving medical care. They run into the fire, they run into the earthquake, they run into the genocide, they run into the pandemic. They're out there saving lives. So I would look into that.
Yeah, my roommate, I had a roommate who worked with them, French Canadian, and we did some work in a hospital together. And but she was also like a very problematic fundamentalist.
I was just I don't love everything that Doctors Without Border does. I was just saying on a scale. If you had to say a harm scale, they're closer to the bottom than the top. Yeah. They do have some harm level. I will there is still some colonialism in there. But
no touch without a trace, for sure.
Yeah. Anything else?
I hope this helps a little bit, at least.
It does a little bit. I will take it, noodle on it after I've had a few hours of sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
you. Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not really an area of expertise for me, so I couldn't help too much.
No.
But if you find something out that's really cool and you're like, hey, yo, dude, I found the way to help some people without being weird, please tell me, because it is a difficult question. All right, take care, Emma.
All right, thanks, guys. Y'all too.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye-bye. Well, that's way better than I thought that conversation was going to go. Honestly.
Also,
I thought that was
I'm not completely sure about the theist designation. I feel like might be wavering in that conversation. But
call back again, Emma, and we'll tell you why your God isn't real. But then, until then, keep doing great work helping people. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. All right, we got one more call left. And this one comes from Cambo, pronouns he, him, calling in from irritated aardvarks, talking about slurping ants with a lot of grump to it. I don't know that's just so stupid.
Spicy ants, maybe.
Maybe. Cambo says he went from atheist to Einstein's God and has proof. I wonder if Cambo is familiar with the idea that Einstein's God wasn't a god. But we'll see. Cambo, you're on the line with Forrest and Paul. How are you doing?
Good.
Hey, so
by the
you're
way,
saying
for
Einstein's
Iowa,
gauze.
Yeah.
Sorry?
For Iowa, you should say idiots out wandering around.
That's too many words.
That's not an A.
Oh, that's IOWA.
We only go with the two letters here.
Innovative agriculture. Cambo, you're calling in from wherever. Why, you understand Einstein's God wasn't an actual deity, right?
Exactly. But I've discovered the theory of everything, and I do not expect you to believe me.
I don't. So it's good.
Okay. So
where will you be publishing?
I haven't yet, and I'm calling now because I need help. This is the biggest thing
I'm asking you, where will you be? What are you going to do to publish this?
I don't know yet. Okay, let me give you 3 areas where I can talk about, and I'm going to let you decide.
Sure.
Evolution, Big Bang, or a proof for God, logic, and math.
I mean, I'm most interested in the evolution one because that's what I do for a living. But Paul, what do you feel?
Oh, I think evolution would be best. Are you trying to tell us that evolution is not correct, or that's what you're using as a basis? Okay, all right, then let's go with evolution.
Let's talk about evolution for a minute.
Okay. And so this is so the theory is a mathematical formula. So matter.
I'm not a mathematician.
Right. I have a degree in math, for the record, but that's not important.
Nope. Let's hear the formula.
Yep. I'll write it down.
So, well, I'm just going to give you the relationship, not the exact formula, because it's going to be better for the conversation. So matter is dimension 1, and that has a 1 value. Time is dimension 2, and that has a 2 value. And space has a dimension 3, that's a 3 value. Okay?
So just to be clear, you're arbitrarily assigning, could these have been in any order?
No. This deals with Pascal's triangle and Pascal's pyramid. And that relates to the shape of to the universe.
Okay. Carry on.
Okay. Would you like me to explain one of our senses?
Is it necessary? Is it going to help us get to where we're going?
Yeah, just give me one.
Okay, let's start with sight.
Sight. Okay, sight is a time level. It has 2. That's a 2 value. So if you live in the 3D universe, it's going to be a value of 2. To show this, let's talk about the spider and the octopus. Why does the spider have 8 legs and the octopus 8 tentacles, but the octopus only 2 and the spider's 8 eyes?
Not all spiders have 8 eyes.
What?
Not all spiders have 8 eyes. Not all spiders have 8 eyes.
Which spiders don't have 8 eyes?
Like lots.
Do they have webs?
Yeah. There's tons of spiders that don't have 8 eyes. Some spiders have 4, some spiders have 6. It's pretty much any even number leading up to 8.
Okay. But I can give it.
In fact, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it's actually just like one major family or group of spiders that all uniformly have 8. If I remember correctly, there's whole clades, whole groups, families of spiders which are not that.
Okay. But I'll explain what I was saying about it anyways. Okay, so A plus B.
But hold on, I'm sorry. Does that change it? If you're saying that this is a fundamental part of reality, that there's this relationship between legs and eyes, and then you know that not all of these things, does that not change anything? Or is this just an analogy?
This isn't perfect because evolution is kind of quirky and it kind of depends upon when things evolved.
I have no idea where we're going with this, dude. I tell you, I am more in the weeds now than I was with Carlos. I know that sight equals 2.
Okay, so if you're in the 3D, so spiders have webs. That's in a 2D world, and then they have sight.
No, they're not. There's lots of 3-dimensional webs.
No.
Webs have webs that go in all 3 directions.
Okay.
Cambo, I'm also confused.
What do you mean? Okay, does that not change? Does that not change anything? The fact that webs are 3-dimensional all the time? What about trapdoor spiders?
Okay, well, let me put it this way. It works for the ones that it works for.
Well, then it's not a
Why do you think that we live in a 3-dimensional world when I think we live in a 4-dimensional world?
No, actually, we live in a 5-dimensional world.
What's the 5th?
Yes. Okay, so the fourth dimension is life. The 5th dimension is thought, and you're not going to believe that. I don't expect you to.
How is life a dimension, and how do you not include time?
Time is in the dimension. Time's the 2nd dimension. Perspective, actually, the 4th
what
dimension
is length? Which one is length?
We better go through these. You better tell us what the 1st and 2nd. We better go through all this.
The first.
I need to know.
The 1st dimension. Okay, what's your question?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
What the fuck are the dimensions?
Okay. Okay. There's dimension 1 is matter. Dimension
No,
2 is
no.
time.
So we're not using
Weird
the same...
start. Well, no, she said dimension 2 was time and dimension 3 was space, but you said those were numerical values earlier.
Yes, they have. Yeah, the math.
Okay, so hold on. I gotta rearrange my notes here. Those are dimensions now.
But also, if you think a spider web is in 2 dimensions, then you think it's in... I thought you meant just length and width.
No, he means matter and space.
No, okay.
Which 2 dimensions are a spider web?
Well, okay. When I think about a spider web, it's in 2 dimensions, regardless of
which is length and width, right?
No, but what do you mean? Do you mean 2 dimensions as in length and width, or do you mean 2 dimensions as in matter and time?
Oh, length and width. Sorry.
Okay, so what the fuck is the difference between those dimensions of length, width, and height and the dimensions of space, which is your 3rd dimension? So does dimension 3 have dimension 3 subset A, B, and C?
Okay, let me...
Also, what dimension is perception again? I need to remember. What you said there's 5. So there's matter, time, and space. What are the other 2?
Life.
Perspective.
Life was 1.
Life.
Perspective.
Okay.
Perspective is life.
Perspective equals life. That's the 4th dimension.
Perspective equals 4 equals life.
Okay, the 5th dimension is thought.
Thought. Can you give me a situation? I swear to God, dude. Can you give me a situation in which thought is independent of life?
No.
Then why is it not included in the perspective dimension?
No, it's part of have you gone over the 3-body problem?
Like the
I
TV
don't
show?
know what dimension 3 is.
Dimension 3 is space.
Yes, but does that include length, width, and height?
Yes.
Okay, so there are subsets to dimension 3. I'm going to draw a fucking arrow and put length, width, height. Where does time fit into this? Time is number 2.
Yes. And that's a
okay, so
relativity.
matter. Now, hold on. Wait. Matter is number 1. And matter would then also fit into 3, right?
Okay, think of matter is in the quantum realm.
No, it isn't. Okay. Dimension 1 is contingent on dimension 3 existing. You cannot have matter if there is no length, width, and height for that matter to embody, right?
Okay, actually, dimension 1, 2, and 3 are contingent on each other. That happens at the beginning of the Big Bang.
They're not. They're not. So dimension 1 matter is contingent on space, on dimension 3, because one of the definitions of the word matter is that it has mass and it takes up space, right? So that goes together. Dimension 5, thought, is contingent on dimension 4, which is perspective and or life. Dimension 2 is time. All of those things are contingent on dimension 2 insofar as events occur. This is what I've gotten so far, and I still don't understand how sight is a dimension 2 thing, because that's what you said a minute ago. You said sight exists in the time dimension. How?
Okay. I should say not exist in, but relates to would be a better way to say it. So
how does it not relate to space?
Let me explain. Okay. So when you're looking at something, you see the past of what's happened, right?
Yeah.
But if something's coming toward you, you can see the future. You can see what's coming at you, right?
No, you can't. No. You're still seeing the past, because if something is coming towards you, you're still only seeing the light that is reflecting off of it and then coming to your eyes and hitting your retina and then traveling through your optic nerve up to your occipital lobe.
But okay,
all of that takes time. So you're only ever seeing the past ever, no matter what.
How long does it take? How long does the light waves go? They go infinite, don't they?
No.
Yeah, actually, do they ever stop? Do light waves ever stop?
I think they do run out of energy, and there's a point where they can't
No,
reach. I
they
could
have
be
zero
wrong. I'm not
energy.
a physicist.
Light waves have zero energy.
Okay. I don't believe you, but okay.
I know you don't believe me. Well, how about I explain the Big Bang in a quick 2 minutes?
You haven't covered evolution yet. You were supposed to cover evolution and sight.
I gotcha.
What is evolution? How does it work in your worldview?
Okay, so the organs relate to the dimensions of the universe.
What?
And how they work.
What dimension of the universe does the stomach relate to?
The stomach relates to the subconscious. It's not a conscious. The stomach is not a sense. Is a sense organ of the subconscious. It is not a sense organ on the outside world. So that's not a good.
It absolutely is. If I put food into my stomach or don't have food in it, then I have my vagus nerve is going to tell me what's going on, and I now am sensing what's going on in the world around me, depending on what I'm putting into my body.
Okay.
What about the large intestine? What does the large intestine relate to?
Okay, the stomach and the intestines is the digestive system.
Parts of it.
And I would call subconscious things systems.
Why, in your model, is it true that your large intestine, you can poke it, you can cut it, you can do these things, and you don't feel, it has no sensation, but it feels stretching. You get pain sensations with it stretching, and that causes peristalsis. So it has involuntary reaction and conscious nociception, and also differences in like sensation and pain management. How does that fit if it has both conscious and unconscious parts?
Well, I'm not saying you can't feel harm from your organs, but I'm talking about the major sense organs of our body. I wouldn't call the stomach a major sense organ.
You just said organs. You just said organs.
Okay, then I misspoke. The English is my worst language. Math, concepts, and symbolism is my best language. And I know you won't believe that, but that's okay.
Cambo.
There are 78 organs in the human body, and I need to go through all of them and understand what fucking dimension.
No. No, I can't go that far because that's your spleen doesn't relate to the outside world that much. It's not.
It super does.
It's not a good.
I want to understand. Like you said, you were going to explain evolution, so please do that. That's what I would like to do.
I'm not. So your eyes and ears relate to the time dimension.
What does that mean?
It means we have two ears and eyes because it relates to the time dimension of two. And the ears deal with balance.
That during the Cambrian period, there were animals with 5 eyes. Does this apply then to like hallucinogena or anomalocaris? Anomalocaris has 5 eyes. Does it also relate to the time dimension?
Now, where did it live? I need to know where it lived
the ocean.
for that makes. Was it about ground warming?
Was it? What?
I don't know about that guy. So it looks like I've kind of failed. But I can explain the Big Bang for you to think about this. That would be the best thing for you to think about. To say maybe there's a 1% chance I'm right.
No, Cambo,
I don't
I'm
think
gonna be
that's
a million. Yeah. I'm not like seriously. I don't want you to think that I'm being just deliberately rude here.
No, I don't.
You said that you have a theory of everything, which any serious scientist would tell you is a ludicrous claim to make. Then you said that you have no idea how you're going to go forward and publish it, which whatever, that's fine. And then you said I can start by explaining why all spiders have 8 eyes. Well, they don't. Well, never mind, because webs are 2-dimensional. Actually, they're not. Well, animals have 2 eyes. Not all of them. It's every single turn you've failed. And so I don't understand why I should take you seriously when you say you know anything about anything.
I gotcha.
Especially when you're trying to propose a model which redefines literally everything about fundamental reality. Why do I care about this?
It seems you've assigned things arbitrary numbers and are just saying, well, that's bucket 4.
It's not
and
an arbitrary number. They're not
but
arbitrary numbers.
You and I disagree greatly on how many dimensions the universe has, for example.
Right. Exactly,
So
because
I think there's... Because I can't what? Because I'm using the same definition of dimensions that physicists use?
No, because I can't show you the math on a call.
Like you seem to think that life is a dimension, which makes me wonder what the universe looked like before abiogenesis. If a dimension of the universe didn't exist until the first replicating cell, that seems like a very unstable universe.
The 4th dimension is perspective, and you can only have perspective if you have light.
Right.
Right.
So what did the universe look like?
Before
the universe
life
looked like exactly what it is before life
happened.
Well,
then it can't be a dimension of the universe. Then it can't be a dimension.
You're telling me that 3.8 billion years ago, a new dimension started?
Yes.
And that new dimension just happens to, and all of these dimensions, especially number 2, which is time, doesn't apply to copepods, which are little tiny plankton that have only 1 eye, because that's an odd number of eyes, so they don't fit.
Okay, let me give you a prediction. That
was a yes or no question.
I have no idea about that one. I'll be honest about it.
Then you don't have a theory of everything.
No, the theory of everything doesn't tell you about every single thing that happened.
So it's not a theory of everything.
No, if you don't know exactly how things happened and when it happened, and I'm not there. This is like less than 2 weeks old.
Cyclops have lived we have copepod cyclops. Cyclops is a species of copepod that is alive today. Right now, there are millions of little dudes with only 1 eye.
Okay, but when did they start? When did they start happening? Really, a long time ago, I'm assuming.
When did they evolve?
Yeah, when did they be coming into existence?
Why does it matter?
Because life has cycles, and the universe has cycles. The universe has eons, and they go back.
How does that relate to what you said a minute ago, where you said the fact that things have 2 eyes, or an odd or an even number of eyes at least, is directly related to the dimension of time? Are you telling me that the universe has cycles in which these dimensions change in relevance?
The universe has order, and as things go on,
that's not an answer.
The order, well, it's complicated. I can't.
I asked you a yes or no question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it? I'll do better for you.
Are you telling me if sometimes animals having two eyes is a definitive proof of what you're talking about, and it factors into your dimension of time, and when animals don't have two eyes, well, that's a different thing because it's cyclical and all that. Are you telling me that these dimensions have periods, cycles, where they go in and out of relevance?
No, they come into relevance. So it depends upon when.
Which would mean they also go out of it, right?
No, the universe builds on it. The dimensions build on it. And
how does something come into relevance if it is already relevant?
No, that's not. There is a certain point before there's life. What's the first step for life to happen? Let's look at it in the steps of life on how things happen. The first thing you got to get is, like a bacteria, a single cell organism to get life, right?
Bacteria
or close
are
to
more
it.
complicated than bacteria are far more complicated than whatever the first cells would have looked like.
Well, I'm just saying first you got to get a one cell organism, don't you? Or something like that, right? You can't have a multi-cell organism before you get a single cell organism. Is that true?
Presumably.
Okay. Then after you get to that step, then you can go to multi-cell organisms. And then you're slowly building and building and building, and on top of that. But
we've only seen eukaryotes. We've only seen eukaryotes go from unicellularity to multicellularity. And also they never just go to 2 cells. They go from 1 to like 8. All of a sudden they glump up together very quickly. It's not a straight standardized process, anything like that. It's not straightforward like you're pretending. It's just not.
Are you trying to say that this is an example of how things are additive? Are you trying to say the answer to Forrest's question before was that the universe can add dimensions, but it never takes away dimensions? Is that the weird distinction you're trying to make?
Yes, that's a better way to put it.
Well, then that would only make sense if the dimension of time came somehow after the evolution of things like Cyclops and Anomalocaris. Otherwise, those things would be breaking the laws of the universe.
Well, there's 3 dimensions of time, space, and matter. And then there's a life dimension, and there's a thought dimension. And they add upon each other. But that's okay. Let me explain how the Big Bang happened so you get an idea of where I'm coming from.
We're overtime.
Yeah, you don't know anything about how evolution works. You don't know anything about how biology works. And now you want me to tell me that the Big Bang works somehow that doesn't make sense to any physicist in the world? It sounds to me like you have a very... you seem to understand science. It sounds to me like you understand biology the way that I understand computer science, which is not a lot. And you're applying this very limited understanding that you have to this mathematical model that you've created because you're a mathematician. That's what you're relying on. And you're coming up completely short of actual science. And then claiming that you have a theory of everything when in reality what you have is a pretty triangle that you like. And I don't understand why we're going to listen. It's already 25 minutes in. We've got 0 from this call, and we're already an hour overtime. So I don't think I want to hear you talk about the Big Bang, Garmo.
Okay. Can I tell you to call you tomorrow, or do you not want to listen?
Yeah, call me tomorrow on Skeptalk. But first, I want you to take every single thing that you think you know about the Big Bang and Google it, and just double check that it's real.
No, you don't understand
what shape spider webs can be. Have an awesome rest of your day, Cambo. Thank you very much. What's frustrating? I really don't mean to be a jerk, but like, it is just so fucking arrogant to call in and say, "Hey, I know why all science is wrong, and it's because spider webs are in 2 dimensions, and every spider has 8 eyes." No.
Also, my theory is 2 weeks old. My theory is too easy.
Yes.
So the way I'm going to test this is I'm going to call a couple of guys at a college show.
Yes. It's frustrating to me when callers use the line the way that they should be using Google. You know what I mean? Just like, I'm going to throw this at these guys and they'll tell me if I'm crazy. Not a good look.
You know what? Or ChatGPT. ChatGPT will just, if you say, hey, here's my theory, tell me what's wrong with it, it'll give a list.
It will. Dude, I love ChatGPT because if you go into ChatGPT and tell me why this is right, it'll tell you. And if you say, explain this thing to me, it'll do it. It might not get it correct, but it'll do it. But if you actually do work and come up with an idea on your own and actually come up with something structured and then plug it in and say, fact check this, or no, don't fact check this because it's not a search engine, but like critically analyze this. What are the problems?
Right. Yep.
It'll help you tighten up your shit. Like I do that all the time whenever I'm writing. If you go in and say, write me an essay about XYZ thing, you're in for a bad time. But if you write your essay and plug it in and say, how can this be improved? Phenomenal tool.
Yep.
Very
tell me what's wrong with this. Tell me what's right with it it'll make up things for you to be right.
Yes.
So but if it's very good at telling me why things are wrong. Very good.
Yep. Cambo should know though, tomorrow we've got me and Erika. So you got two biologists and we would love to have you explain evolution to us. It'll be a lot of fun. With that, Paul, do you have anything else before we wrap up the show?
I just want to thank all the volunteers behind the scenes and our producer and all the people who've been very patient and working with our long show. I appreciate them so much. And I'm so thankful I'm going to eat a bird.
I love it.
Yep.
Thank you to our call screeners. Thank you to our producer. Thank you to the mods in the chat. Thank you to everybody who showed up to the chat to participate in the show, even the ones that suck. Thank you to all of our callers, even the ones that suck. We appreciate you. We wouldn't have a show without you. If you are questioning your beliefs or looking to deconstruct, if you believe in a god or gods, if you're a science denier of any time, this show is going to be here for you every single week. Call in next time. I'm Forrest. That's Paul. Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. Never stop learning. Bye.